Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News, broadcasting live from the Al Arabiya headquarters. These are our top stories. A news conference between the US envoy to Ukraine and President Zelenskyy is cancelled, despite the two meeting earlier today. It comes as a row between Trump and Zelenskyy escalates, but Vice President J.D. Vance says he believes they're on the cusp of peace in Europe. The bodies of 4 Israeli hostages arrive in Tel Aviv after Hamas released them under the Gaza ceasefire deal. And the Pope is reportedly stable and continuing his work duties from hospital as he battles pneumonia. To our top story, a news conference planned for today between Ukrainian President Volodyrmr Zelenskyy and Donald Trump's Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg has been cancelled. A Kyiv official says it was at the request of Washington, despite the two meeting earlier today. Their meeting comes as President Donald Trump continued to criticize and make false claims about Zelenskyy after calling him a dictator without elections and warning that he better move fast to negotiate an end to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In the last hour, US Vice President J.D. Vance has defended Trump, saying he believes they are on the cusp of peace in Europe. For more on this story, I'm joined by our correspondent, Stuart Smith, who's in Kyiv. Stuart, thank you for joining me. Tensions are growing, so this press conference being cancelled shouldn't really come as a surprise, should it?
President Zelenskyy, when going into that press conference, said that he was there to try and prepare for what he called negotiations, more than just a talk for the Ukrainian president, as he tries to sell Ukraine to Washington to keep it invested. Now, Keith Kellogg has always said he was here mostly on a listening mission, so perhaps it isn't surprising indeed that he didn't give a press conference in the end to talk about what he had discussed. He sees his role here more as informing Washington about where exactly President Zelenskyy stands, and on the most controversial issues there's been no change. Ukraine is still desperate for Washington to continue to be involved in Ukrainian defence and, in case of any ceasefire deal, a peacekeeping role after that ceasefire, and also in keeping Washington close to what Kyiv would see as the ideal form of outcome, which doesn't provide too many concessions to Russia. We did hear from Ukraine's foreign minister, so while we haven't heard from Volodymyr Zelenskyy after his meeting, the foreign minister spoke about his discussion with Keith Kellogg. After that, he said that the meeting discussed ways to bring a comprehensive, just and lasting peace to Ukraine. The foreign minister said that Ukraine is still looking to achieve peace through strength, a reference to the idea that the stronger Ukraine is in terms of its ability to fight Russia, the better its negotiating position will be. And also, the foreign minister said that the security of Ukraine and the transatlantic is indivisible. Another reference to the fact Ukraine sees the danger in letting Russia feel like it has a win with regards to any peace negotiation. That could bring more problems for the West later down the line, as well as Ukraine.
Stuart, European leaders are once again criticising Trump's comments. The British Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, called Zelenskyy last night to offer his support, didn't he? Who else have we heard from?
Yeah, he did, and so did the French President Emmanuel Macron. Both of those two, the leaders of France and the United Kingdom, heading to Washington next week to talk with Donald Trump about how Europe sees all of this and try to convince him to maintain the support to Ukraine that so far the US has provided, but looks even less likely to continue the more the days go on. In terms of European officials coming to here in Kyiv for the anniversary, the third anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, we've heard the European Council President is coming, as well as the Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez. And so there is support not just privately but publicly for President Volodymyr Zelenskyy to try to show him that Europe at least is still on board with Kyiv's vision of peace. The divide really seems now to be between Washington and Moscow.
The Kremlin has reacted to the British Prime Minister saying he's ready and willing to put UK troops on the ground in Ukraine as part of a peacekeeping mission. It says his proposals are unacceptable. It seems tensions aren't just rising between Trump and Zelenskyy at the moment.
Yeah, there is an acknowledgement here in Ukraine that it looks like that is the way things are going with regard to a ceasefire and then some form of peacekeeping deployment. Ukraine's head of intelligence in the military suggested that he thinks a ceasefire could happen this year. The question will be what happens afterwards. And Europe, as well as Ukraine's proposal, is that peacekeepers should be involved in that, unless Kyiv says it gets NATO membership, which is looking even less likely. And so that would be one way the Europeans believe they can help. On the other hand, all of the leaders have suggested it would still require American support. That's what they say here in Kyiv as well. So even if, as some draft plans doing the rounds suggest, a 30,000 peacekeeper contingent could come to Ukraine, more to provide reassurance than to get involved with any fighting, that's for sure, it would still require US diplomatic and also military support to happen. So now, here in Kyiv, Ukraine trying to convince the envoy to go back and tell Washington what Ukraine needs, and then European leaders heading to Washington too, all to try to convince Washington not to align with Russia, which is what the fear in Ukraine is right now, that more and more statements coming from the White House suggest Donald Trump's thinking is closer and closer to Moscow's thinking, which has got people in the Kremlin very excited about what this could mean.
Stuart Smith in Kyiv, thank you so much for joining me. For more reaction on the story, we can now go live to Odessa to speak to Ukrainian MP Oleksiy Goncharenko. Oleksiy, thank you so much for joining me. So Trump has made some pretty remarkable claims, including missing money and that Zelenskyy's approval rating is at just 4%. Is Donald Trump telling the truth right now?
No. I don't want to deepen the crisis which we already have. Zelenskyy has more than 4%, and I think there is no any money lost. In any way, Ukraine is interested, above all, to show all the numbers, and it can be easily done. It's not a hard question to do if there is a will to do something together. So I think we should go out of this speaking about numbers, persons, who has more support, less support. It's absolutely not productive. And come to the basics. Russia, the war of Russia against Ukraine is not the war against Ukraine. Putin was clear from the very beginning. It is his war against the West and Anglo-Saxons. So the question is, does really Donald Trump want to give Putin victory? I don't believe in this. I'm sure he doesn't want to do this. And he wants to win, he wants to be strong and stronger than Putin. And Ukraine is essential for security on European continent. And that is the basics. Ukraine also has the biggest battle-hardened army in the free world, 1 million battle-hardened people in the war of 21st century. Nobody else has this. So despite these personal things right now between two presidents, the basic interests of United States of America and Ukraine are the same. That's the most important.
Many have criticized his attack. Trump's known for not holding back, but this really feels like a massive shift in tone, and he seems to be doubling down on his threats. Do you think he's trying to bully Zelenskyy into a deal, a fast deal?
We don't know what is in the deal. Me personally, I would like to see Ukrainians at the table. But at the same time, what is we are interested in? We want just to sit at the table, or we want to have a good deal? It's not, sitting at the table, which is the most important. So what I would do, and I'm saying it publicly in Ukraine, I'm saying it now, I would map Ukrainian red lines, what is essential for Ukraine. And I think this is Ukrainian sovereignty. Our independence, we already defended. I think the whole world realized that Ukraine, we protected it ourselves. It was not American soldiers. It was Ukrainians. We're not Afghanistan. We protected, we defended our independence. There is the problem with our territorial integrity. And yes, unfortunately, it looks like we can't regain our territories right now. But these territories are Ukrainian according to international law. Sooner or later, Russian Empire will fall apart like it happened with them before, and we will regain control over our territories. So what is essential today? It's our sovereignty, meaning that we have our own right to decide where we go, what army we keep, and so on and so on. And I'm sure that's in the best interest of the United States of America and Europe too, of the free world too. So that's, we need to say, this is our red lines. President Trump, please make a deal which will give us these red lines, maybe even better. That's all. And if he will not give us this deal, we always can say, thank you very much, but this is our country, we are protecting it, and we will continue to do this. Or if it will be a good deal for us, we can say, thank you very much, President Trump, you did an amazing job.
So if you decide not to take the deal because it doesn't fall in line with the red lines you just said, how is Ukraine going to keep defending itself if the US isn't paying for weapons anymore? What happens then?
It's a very bad scenario, but I want to remind you that when Russia attacked Ukraine 3 years ago, and they were preparing for this war for quite a long time, they were sure that they will take Kyiv in days, and all media in the world was saying this. But what had happened? They failed. And it was not thanks to the United States, with all respect, so are they allies? It was Ukrainian army with, at that moment, almost zero Western weaponry. Because javelins and NLAWs, this is good, but it's for guerrilla fighting. But we stopped Russia with our own weapon, with our own army. From that time, yeah, we lost some territories, we lost many people, that's very painful. But we are battle-hardened today, we produce even more weapons than before, so we're stronger than we were 3 years ago. So we can continue to defend our country, even without US support. But it is a very bad scenario, and I am sure this scenario will not happen, because it's not in the interest of both of us.
European leaders have come out to support Zelenskyy. How crucial is this for him right now to have the backing of his neighbours?
I think it's very important, and I'm very thankful for all European leaders. But I want to shift our conversation from Zelenskyy. We're speaking about Ukraine, and I'm thankful for European leaders that they supported Ukraine. And the conflict between President Trump and President Zelenskyy shouldn't be the conflict of the United States with Ukraine. Ukraine, as any other country, is much more important than any other leader. Fortunately, Zelenskyy also made some comments which I think were not the best one to make. So I just want to remind all of us, Ukraine will survive this war. Today, President is Zelenskyy. We are democracy. Next elections will be somebody else. But we are needed by the free world, and we need the free world. That's the most important. And we hope that Europe will rally around Ukraine, around our country today. Because as rightfully said President Trump, there is an ocean between the United States and Russia. And between Europe and Russia, there is only Ukraine.
Alexei Goncharenko, Ukrainian MP, thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at some of the other stories making the headlines today. US airline Delta have said they'll give $30,000 to each passenger on board the aircraft that crash-landed in Toronto this week. A company spokesman said the gesture had no strings attached and did not affect the rights of passengers. Dramatic footage of the crash showed the plane flipping before skidding to a stop. 21 people were injured in the incident, but thankfully no one on board was killed. The Trump administration has frozen funding to the Palestinian Authority security forces, according to the Washington Post. It's part of an overall freeze on foreign aid. The Authority's security forces are responsible for keeping law and order in parts of the Israeli-occupied West Bank. The SS United States, formerly the largest passenger ship built in the US, has left Philadelphia after 3 decades. The vessel was launched in 1951 and carried almost 1 million passengers before 1969. It will now form part of the world's largest artificial reef in Alabama, which is intended to attract marine life and divers. And comedy on prescription is being trialled within the UK Health Service as an alternative to antidepressant medication and in an attempt to reduce costs. Funded by Crack Health, its hopes stand-up shows and workshops will support those who feel isolated and lonely. Over 8 million Brits were taking antidepressants in 2023 and 2024, an increase of 2.1% from the year before. The bodies of 4 Israeli hostages have arrived in Tel Aviv after Hamas handed them over to the Red Cross in Gaza. The bodies returned to Israel are believed to be of a young mother, Sheri Bibas, and her 2 sons, Ariel and Kiefer. The militant group also released the body of 83-year-old peace activist Oded Lifshift. For more on this, I'm joined by Professor Ahmed Usul, a Middle East analyst at the International Relations Department at Istanbul University. Good evening to you, Ahmed. The bodies of the hostages have arrived in Jaffa for identification. Talk us through the process which will be taking place, and when are we expected to discover what did happen to these hostages?
Yeah, good evening first. Of course, there was a huge destruction and huge Israeli bombing on Gaza. And of course, before that, we remember the October 7 events that kidnapped or took prisoners, some of the Israelis, and they were hiding under many buildings. And during of course, the bombing and shelling, some of the Israeli prisoners died, and it is natural because almost every building was destroyed, and many people died and injured in these events. And Hamas says that these people, they were Israeli citizens, they were killed by the Israeli attacks, and they say it is deliberately. I don't know if it is deliberately, but we know that the outcome is they are at the end. They died, and now after several debates and maybe questions whether it's gonna continue the second phase or not, before the second phase, as a good gesture, Hamas said they were gonna, of course, with mediations by Qatar and Egypt and United States, they reached a deal on continuing this exchange of both the live and also the deceased people. And it is also very significant, on the humanitarian side, respect for the dead people, and also exchanging even the dead and alive, also giving a chance for peace is a significant and is a positive development, I think.
The United Nations have said the way the hostages' bodies, coffins, were lined up in Khan Yunis earlier today before they were handed to the Red Cross was cruel and inhumane. What's your take on this?
Of course, the situation is very, very dire, and it's very inhumane situation. They are living in Gaza. And also, some attacks on the West Bank, and Palestinian people, they need urgent support, urgent aids. And some of the aids, even though Israel agreed on the delivery of the aid to the Gazans, they delay these trucks coming from Egypt, and also many countries donated, and they are ready, even including Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and other nations. They are trying to help, but Israel is trying to delay as much as possible to increase the suffering. But the suffering is almost like unbearable for any normal human being. So it's a call for more action, more acceleration of this process. At the end, we see people suffering, and it's. In the winter time, it is the situation with the cold getting worse.
Professor, I know that you did mention the second stage of the ceasefire. We know the talks were due to start earlier this month. They didn't. But now, as you said, they expected to take place this week, according to the Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar. What do you think we can expect from this second phase? Like you said, there's been a lot of suffering in Gaza. What do you think they'll be looking to achieve now?
I think Netanyahu and his cabinet, they want to continue their war, their unjust war, unfair war. But Trump also insisting somehow, make a deal out of this. And of course, he suggested that, to free Gaza or to move the citizens of Gaza or inhabitants of Gaza from the situation. Of course, it is being discussed by the Arab countries, but many Arab states that are involved already declared that this is unfeasible and also unfair and also unacceptable. And Trump, of course, he's testing the waters, but at the end, I think America as the supervisor of Israel will decide, and Trump's position on this will be very important. But I assume he wants to make a victory or kind of a statement for himself or a message saying that he achieved peace. That's why he was already, like before he came to power, he was forcing Netanyahu to accept a deal. If he insists that the process should go, we will see the second phase. But these days, I think we are closer to the second phase. At least, the process, the early process is going forward with the exchange of refugees. Also, the talks have started, and I think there is hope for the second stage, but we need, more pressure. Of course, everything is based on the international pressure, public opinion, humanitarian aid, international institutions. This pressure should be felt by the international community, Muslim world, Arab world, etc. So it is there, but the Israeli government is not as much responsive. I think maybe American president, newly elected president, he doesn't want to lose all of his credits for Gaza. I think he want to push for at least a try for the second stage.
Professor Ahmed Uzul, Middle East analyst, I really appreciate your thoughts. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at some of the other stories making the headlines today. South Korea's impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol has attended the first hearing of his criminal trial over insurrection charges. His lawyers have demanded his release from jail as they argued that the insurrection probe had been conducted in an illegal manner. If convicted, Yoon could face years in prison for his martial law decree. Voters in Germany will go to the polls on Sunday to elect a new parliament. 4 candidates are running to be the country's next leader, including the incumbent Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Friedrich Merz of the Christian Democratic Union is poised to become the next chancellor. He is a migration hardliner, socially conservative, and pro-business. US President Donald Trump's administration is looking for alternatives to Boeing for the Air Force One aircraft. Delays following the COVID-19 pandemic and financial troubles have plagued the US aerospace giant. It's believed President Trump is not happy with the revised delivery timeline in 2027 and 2028. The current Air Force One jets are facing rising maintenance costs. And a man who exhibited fixated behaviour towards British tennis player Emma Raducanu has been given a restraining order. Dubai police say they took swift action against the man who handed a letter to the athlete and had been asked to leave the Dubai Tennis Championships earlier this week. The Vatican has said Pope Francis remains in a stable condition in hospital, and blood tests have shown a slight improvement in his health. The 88-year-old pontiff is being treated in Rome's Gemelli Hospital for a severe bronchial infection and pneumonia. Last night, he was visited by Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, who said she was very happy to have found him alert and responsive. For more on this, I'm joined by international lawyer and church consultant, Dr. Harry Gopin. Good evening to you, Harry. The Italian Prime Minister has also said he was joking during her visit and hasn't lost his sense of humour. But this is a worrying time for the church. Earlier in the week, he reportedly told aides he might just not make it.
Yes, well, probably he did, but I think he will make it. I mean, he's a person who likes to joke. He's a person who likes to reach out to others. He's not an austere person. And in that sense, his interactions with people are to be commended. And although the lung infection that he's got, which took him to the hospital for the second time running in a couple of years, is serious, I'm hopeful, as are a lot of other people, that he will get better and return to the Vatican.
You said there that Pope Francis likes to joke and he's got a good sense of humour. What has his impact been? What is he going to be known for and remembered for during his time?
I think a lot of things. For one, he's a man who is very, very informed and very cautious about environmental and green issues. And this is something his letter Laudate Si, which was a big springboard for the Vatican in terms of its environmental policies, was received quite well across the world. But he's also somebody who has made the church more approachable to the ordinary people. You see, he comes from a Latin American background. He doesn't come from a European background, and therefore he has perhaps a different way of interacting with people. And I think that what he has done is to make people feel closer to the church, and the church being simpler in the sense that it is not one body there and then the mass population on the other, but much more of an intimate, organic relationship between the institutions and the Catholic faithful. And I think that's one of the things that he will be remembered for when he passes away.
Yes, indeed. I've seen a few reports around that plans are being made for his funeral. If it does come to this, can you remind us of the process if he does die and what lies ahead for the church?
Well, it is not a question of if he dies, but it's a question of when he dies. And when that happens, I mean, it's going to be the same like all previous popes. We saw that with his predecessor, Pope Benedict. We saw that with great popular acclaim with Saint Pope John Paul II, the Polish Pope, who was very much liked and very popular across the world. And what will happen is that after his death, when it happens, there will be a period of rest during which the Vatican will organize the funeral. Foreign leaders will be invited to come and join, and then he will just be buried like everybody else. But I think that the thing that distinguishes this Pope from others is that he's not very big on protocol, and therefore it will be, I think, a simpler funeral. If I could recall, and if I could remind your viewers as well, that when he became Pope in 2013, he turned away all the pomp and circumstance that surrounds this office in Rome. And he said, no, I want to have a small place where I can live and meet my people. And he goes around in a tiny little Fiat car. So he has a different approach to the papacy than perhaps in older times in history, and this might well be reflected whenever the time comes and Rome and the world will say goodbye to him and get ready for a new pope.
As the world continues to hope his health does improve, there was actually a beautiful rainbow over the hospital he is staying in this week. Hopefully this is a positive sign. Sources at the Vatican have reportedly said he is continuing to do some work too, so seems to be some hope on the horizon.
There is hope on the horizon. He's working, he's reading the newspapers. I mean, they even reported that he had his breakfast in the armchair next to his bed, which is a very subtle way for the Vatican to say that he's mobile. And interestingly enough, this is quite a novelty for the Vatican in terms of being so open, so transparent with the public and not sort of hiding the whole thing behind a curtain of opaqueness. And I think that he will overcome this lung infection. But let us not forget, as you said in your intro, he's 88 years old. He's been Pope since 2013, and he's always said, I will resign when I'm no longer able to execute my job, my functions. But I believe that mentally, as well as to a lesser degree, perhaps physically, he is still quite able not only to execute his functions, but also, more importantly for me, to reach out to the faithful, both in Italy and abroad.
I wonder what the Pope did have for breakfast. Dr. Harry Hergopin, international lawyer and church consultant. I really appreciate you joining me.
My pleasure.
Let's take a look at the top business news now. Stubborn inflation and President Trump's hardline trade policies have rekindled fears of US economic stagflation. This is a mix of sluggish growth and relentless inflation. A Bank of America survey of global fund managers shows the number of investors expecting stagflation over the next year did stand at a 7-month high. Meanwhile, this comes despite markets remaining upbeat on Trump's pro-growth agenda. Now, in a bid to revive earnings, Mercedes-Benz has announced further cost-cutting and more petrol and diesel cars than EVs in its new product range. This comes as the German luxury car maker looks to revive margins as the company braces for a sharp drop in earnings in 2025. Turning to the sports news now. And the Spanish football powerhouse Real Madrid is celebrating after a 3-1 win over Manchester City on Wednesday. Kylian Mbappe scored a hat-trick, helping his team reach the Champions League round of 16. Real Madrid will face either City rival Atletico or German champion Leverkusen. The draw for the round of 16 takes place on Friday. And former Spanish football chief Luis Rubiales has been found guilty over kissing player Jenny Hermoso without consent after the Women's World Cup final in 2023. Spain's High Court has also ordered Rubiales to pay a fine worth more than €10,000, but has acquitted him of coercion. A reminder of our top stories. A news conference between the US envoy to Ukraine and President Zelenskyy is cancelled, despite the two meeting earlier today. It comes as the row between Trump and Zelenskyy escalates, but Vice President J.D. Vance says he believes they're on the cusp of peace in Europe. The bodies of 4 Israeli hostages arrive in Tel Aviv after Hamas released them under the Gaza ceasefire deal. And the Pope is reportedly stable and continuing his work duties from hospital as he battles pneumonia. And that's all from us on W News. Thank you so much for joining us. The Dressing Room is coming up next. And of course, don't miss Tom Burges Watson with GNT. Good night and thank you for joining us.
Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News.
It's very impressive.
Where knowledge meets perspective.
Hi guys, we're back. This is the dressing room with Arabiya News. And yes, we've got a special guest here today because one of us are not here, and it's the one and only Mr. Sidwell.
Pleasure to be here, lads.
You love
filling
it?
Filling in for JC.
Where is he, by the way?
You tell me. I don't know.
I've heard he's skiing. That's bad.
He ain't gone skiing, has he?
He has.
No, I'm not having that.
He's dropped his shoulder.
He dropped us out for skiing.
Got a great replacement, though, haven't we?
Yeah, we
great
got
replacement.
Listen, would have had you on anyway. So
Yeah, it was always due to come on.
It was always due to come on.
It reminds me because we've done a few. Like we've worked together in the past on podcasts, and that was obviously that intro there was take two. Like, do you remember?
Oh, no.
When we done a previous podcast a few years ago now, and at the end of it, you have to take like the little segments. So if you want to listen in and find out why I done this and kick this player, click the link below, mate.
Mate, this is every week still. Every week. That's take two, mate. That's good.
We had to write a bit of paper and put it underneath the camera.
I remember that. Who was there? Was it me and you?
I was there.
Who was there? I think was there.
Sean there.
Sure, Mark.
And Lucho.
I see it
was there as well, yeah.
I had to get out of the room. I couldn't stop laughing.
No, but you kept on. It was your fault, you know. You know what you're doing to me. It was like when we played that silly game when you had to feel what it was underneath. We couldn't see what it was. We had to feel
hand in a box.
Hand in a box thing. Yeah, that was quite funny. That.
Well, what have you been up to? Much?
Mate, been busy. Podcast with Crouchy, that's going well. All the punditry stuff. Doing a few games this week, and I'm in the middle of a house build at the minute. New build, so I'm on site. Like I'm hands on it. Yeah. Well, no, like we're building.
Oh, you're building.
Yeah. So
where you are now?
Not far. Yeah. So we sold a couple of years ago, and then bought a place, and then knocked down, and then
That's stressful, isn't it?
It is, but I'm kind of loving it.
I know. I always think about moving sometimes. I'd love an old barn. Do it up.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if I could be bothered with it.
Yeah.
Headache.
It's like because we're quite hands on and like project managing it ourselves. It's
yes.
Oh, that's good though.
It's full focus, and then do bits for the marathon. And I'm training for the marathon now.
Marathon, yeah. What charity you want to run for?
So just quickly, we're going to do it for British Heart Foundation.
Okay,
so we've got the spot through, and then a friend of mine has been diagnosed with MND, motor neurons disease. So it's
mate.
It's terrible.
It is a terrible disease.
It's awful, actually. This is going to be for both of them, but I'll stick links up and figure out down the line and on the socials and stuff. So
Good on you, man.
But mate,
support him.
Training for that is brutal. I didn't think it was. I thought there was going to be some runs a week to do, but mate, the program that someone sent me.
Serious.
Wow.
You've got a program through.
I'd love to do it. My knees are shot.
I'd
love running.
So
you're a good runner, though. You're a good runner.
The thing is, everyone's saying to me, so when I've said I'm doing it, right? So I've been training, I say secretly, I've been doing runs up until Christmas, New Year, because my place wasn't confirmed yet. So, but I wanted to see that if I could actually physically do it, because I retired through, obviously, the spinal surgeries that I had that you boys know about. So literally, I couldn't run. I mean, literally last summer, I was probably doing 1K. Like literally 1K on a treadmill and going, right, that feels all right. Then going up to 2K and then 5K. And I was like, oh, do you know what? I actually feel all right. Because I've always wanted to do the marathon.
Yeah.
When I retired, my first ever summer or April, I'd always wanted to go and do the marathon. But when I retired, obviously because of my back, I was like, got no chance. So that's why I took up cycling and stuff. So, but then just building on the runs last year and then watching it last year. Because we used to go up as well. Me and my wife, we used to go up and watch the marathon. And it's a good day. It's a great day.
Is when you do the marathon, like when you're watching it, how do you get from point to point?
You run.
Oh, no. You know what I mean?
You've got to follow a route, mate.
I said watch. So when you watch,
Yeah, so
there's a way that you can navigate yourself.
Yeah, so
to see everybody go through
there's
it.
all different ways you can do it. There's actually, I think there's an app or there's a website that you can follow, like a little pub crawl as well.
Oh, is there?
We could do that.
That would be actually great.
You can watch it.
We could do like a podcast on the move.
I've never been to London Marathon, so I'll be up.
Mate, it's a good day. It's a really, really good day.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking we could go and...
You'll be going every checkout. Oh, my God.
And then it's them again. It's them again. We just saw him up there.
I guess it's if your body can hold up. Is that what it feels like at the moment?
Yeah, I think that's the bit you'll get through is, can your body just take the pounding for... Because some people go for time, like for when they're training, and some people just go for distance.
Yeah.
Right. So more importantly, you just need to go for time in terms of your body going out on the concrete and just pounding for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what distance you do, but some people want to go and do the distance in the quickest time that they can. That makes sense. So yeah, it's just getting the knees and the joints basically going again to saying.
You're in good shape still, aren't you?
You are, man.
Eat well.
Yeah. I still feel all right, but like you lose it.
Yeah.
Jeez, it's tough.
It's mind over matter. I think it's mind over matter. You got to get back into that frame of mind again, and like say, do you know what? Remember, how many times we never played 100% fit, did we?
No.
So it was always mind over matter.
Yeah.
I can't remember even the first time I was fully fit on a football pitch. So when you get to a point in your life and your career or whatever, it's always mind over matter. And just pushing through and batting on through. So, yeah, man, respect to you.
Yeah. No, I'll keep updates going. I'll let you boys know.
And the important part is obviously the charities that you're doing it for. So good on you, mate.
Yeah, it'd be a good day.
You enjoying the punditry side of things?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Because when I retired, right, and I'm sure this advice was given to you guys as well, was just like make sure you've got a structure. From like it's lovely. It's
the total opposite.
No, but it's lovely. No, that's what people say to us. They go, listen, when you come out, just make sure you're.
I didn't get told that.
No, but the thing is,
I think you have to have some other interest or know what you're going to do next. And I do try and say that to people now. If you've got an interest in something, build on it while you're playing, and so you're ready.
Yeah.
For me though, it's just the kids. I just full on with the kids.
Yeah, but that's it. Yeah, but when you come out, you kind of take it on board, but then you also go, I just want to rest. Like I've done 20 years or 22, however long you've gone through your career, and go, I just want to have a bit of downtime. And then after that downtime, you go a little bit like, right, okay, now I'm getting the urge to get back into something. Yeah. So I had a bit of downtime for a few months, and then I was doing the coaching and the punditry at the same time to see what one that really that grabbed me or took off. And I was doing the coaching at Brighton and loved it. Like a great place to go and learn and get the badges and try and progress through that way. But I just felt the punditry stuff as well. And you probably guys get this. It's just a nice balance with the family. Like you can dip in, you can dip out, you can sort of plan your weeks and months.
Full time, or even worse, isn't it? You're probably more hours than what we're used to.
What threw me with the coaching? Like when you spoke to, I spoke to Stevie, Lampsey, Scotty Parker, and you speak to them and they're like, don't do it.
But to be fair, I see Scotty,
they're like, don't do it.
I see Scotty in Cobham, and he went to me, I think I'm going to take a leaf out of your book and not do anything for a while. A few months later, he's got another job.
Yeah, it definitely is a drug, isn't it? And drags you back in. So,
look, I coached my kids' team last year.
Yeah,
I didn't realise how much I was going to love it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Is it?
I loved it when they were getting the results. I loved the encouragement side of things.
Yeah.
I did really enjoy it. There's some stressful moments, even at under 10s.
Yeah. But it's innocent, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's like you want to win because that's just that's in us.
Seeing them do well. Yeah,
that's nice.
No, I get what you're saying about transitioning out of football. You need that structure and that, like waking up in the morning. You used to wake up what? Well, I used to wake up at 9 o'clock. Rolling for 12. Always late. but you guys used to get up at 7. But having that structure is really important when you're transitioning out of the game.
Yeah.
I had the same thing. I'd done what you done as well. I remember we went up to, where did we go one time? We was up. No. I went up to Loughborough and you were supposed to be with the team, but you weren't there. You was doing, I think you was working on media or something. You was doing something, you was away.
What, for when?
And then you,
Brighton?
Yeah, and you were just about to leave as well.
Okay, yeah.
And I was with, obviously, West Ham, you was at Brighton. So I knew that you was doing that and I was doing what I was doing, but plus doing the media. And it's good for a little while, but then I think you have to choose a path.
Well, that's what I've done, yeah.
If you're really serious about media, go for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why now I do the loans because it's quite flexible. so I can do my media stuff, and then I can actually do. But it's up to you how much you can take.
Yeah.
I think doing both it's hard, but you got to be able to
balance it off,
and you got to be that type of person to be able to do that and not get too stressed. Because otherwise it could be stressful if you're trying to do two things and do it at full capacity and not leave any stones unturned.
Do you ever find yourself having to be critical of players?
Yeah.
Find that hard?
Yeah, like, as long as you do it constructively, you're not hanging anyone out.
No.
You know, and certain pundits will be out there and that's their way of doing it. Like, you know, they'll be aggressive and they'll be... As long as you're not... It doesn't get personal.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is, like... black and white and it's constructive, then that's all that matters.
You know, it sticks with the players sometimes, doesn't it? If you see James Madison's celebration.
That is, there you go. There you go.
Everyone's saying it's aimed at Roy Keane.
But we would have had that as well, wouldn't we?
Yeah, you've had
whatever, a certain reporter or outlet or even fans, even your own fans sometimes get on you. And you see it now. Like, where was it the other week I see? Is it Neto that come on for Chelsea?
Yeah.
He come on, changed the game the other week, and then was doing that. Like he scored the goal. As he's coming back, he was doing that, and I'm thinking, I'm watching going, someone like you're doing that to someone, whether it's the fans or
it's to somebody in the media probably that said something, or it might even be someone personal.
Yeah,
you know, you don't know who it is, but I get it. I love to see the personality of the.
I like seeing it sometimes, but I don't think I would have done it. I just think no, just stay quiet and get on with your game a little bit.
What like when you
say a celebration like that? Yeah, I think if not that I scored many. You know what I mean? I'd be a little bit like, just let it go and get on with it. That's how I'd be, I think.
Yeah,
but I get it while they're doing it as well.
We talk about celebrations, and I love it. And I love the tomfoolery. Yeah. So I'll say this: what did you make of the Everton-Liverpool game? Yeah, and obviously the celebration, the Corridon.
Yeah.
And then obviously Jones's reaction towards that. That is what football is about. That's what I remember it like when we was back in the day.
Yeah.
Now it's a little bit more sterile. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's everything's got to be for the TV. You've got kids watching. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But that shows passion. Yeah. That shows they care. You know. And then they all had a little. It's handbags. It's all handbags. But at the same time, you just want to see that emotion as a football fan. Yeah. Because you feel that emotion through the TV. You're thinking, go on. Do it. Do you know what I mean? But there's nothing wrong with it because someone said it was. I was going back to like the Barclays Premier League when the rivalry was there. Rivalry is a massive thing and it shouldn't ever be shunned because, especially those two clubs as well. Come on, they don't like each
on the
other.
commentary as well. I think it was someone said, "Oh, we don't want to see these scenes." I was like, "Yes, we do. Yeah, we do want to see this."
Yes,
this season, like you look at all the games that have been played so far. How many have like really been enjoyable? Well, you've gone, what a game! Like you probably count on one hand.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, out of all the games,
so I look at sometimes bored.
Yeah,
just like, come on.
Yeah,
there ain't nothing.
Do you know what? Do you know why that is? I'm gonna put this out there. I think, I will say it's a little bit of Pep's fault because of the build-up. Everyone wants to do that slow build-up going up.
I get what you're saying.
But there's a lot of football being played in the midfield. Where is the actual place where people want to see the ball? It's in the final thirds.
You say midfield?
That's where the action is. And the quicker you can get it up there, the better for the fans, the better for the neutral watching it. Yeah. You want to see action.
Yeah.
There's a lot of football being played in the midfield nowadays, which is, look, some of it you can see, if you're a footballer, you can see the technicalities of it and you can see the tactical nuances of what each manager's trying to do. But just get it in the box. That's where the action is, you know what I mean? Yeah. Final third play. That's when you're going to see the 1v1s on the wings. That's when you're going to see someone getting rinsed. Do you know what I mean? The Harry just got megged. That's what you're going to see in the final third because that's where the skill is. So that's how football's going nowadays, I think. But
I think there's a few factors for that, though. One is the modern-day coach it's very much textbook, isn't it? This is how I want to play. It's all done tactically, like the build up to training now and the meetings after. And what happens now is you lose someone like who sits in his chair like Joe Cole, like the Mavericks now in football, where you just go listen, just go and do your thing, right? In possession, like do what you want. Out of possession, just find yourself in an area where we're in a bit of shape, but when we get it, I want you to come alive.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see many managers probably saying that now to players. It's all very much, right, when we get it, you got to do this, you got to do that. And it kind of, like you say, it makes it a little bit sort of sterile, really. Yeah. So, and then Gary Neville said something the other week, which absolutely nailed it for me. He said, more teams now take gambles in their own 18-yard box than they do in the opposition's 18-yard.
Yeah.
They get so in their own one, they're trying to play out, and they get to the attacking one, and then instead of crossing it or going in and take someone on, they just turn back out and pass. It's like, it's like nailed it, isn't it?
It's crazy, really.
Yeah, that is how football's going, though. Like, and
it is.
Like, imagine us doing that back in the day.
Do you reckon you could play now? Do you reckon you could play in today's game?
I just don't know what it would be like, because obviously used to bomb on a lot, and that thing now of getting the ball and giving it to the wingers so we can get at someone, that don't happen a lot now.
Yeah.
Savino at Man City does it. I don't know, it's just so different, innit? And then I was watching Chelsea the other day. There's a left-back, Cucurella, I was saying it right. The way he was playing, sometimes he was like centre forward at one point.
Yeah.
And then they were going from a 4 to a 3.
You'll be going playing centre midfield.
I'll be bombing on, mate.
You'll be bombing on. You won't be worried about getting
suit me, you know. You know what I mean? It might suit me. It's just the whole game. It's like, I remember the City game at the weekend. Ederson, one of the passes for the goal, unbelievable. But it was, like you're saying, they passed around the back. He zipped one in to Phil Foden, like smashed it in between two players. He dealt with it well, but I'm like, I mean, that's risky, but he has dealt with it. Yeah. And like I say, there's a lot of risky passes that go on.
Yeah.
They'll be asking Bridget to just come into midfield. Bridget, come in the midfield for getting the half turn and just get it out. Just like run into the striker.
Listen, we're footballers, and if we'd have been coached that way, we'd have been able to play that way. It's as simple as that. We've always had it, but it's just once you, obviously, we're putting ourselves into this era. Could those boys play in our era? These boys play in our era? Yeah. Probably not. So we probably can't, because we haven't been coached that way. So it's totally different eras. And it's nice to see, like, do you know, it's nice to see a refreshing team like Nottingham Forest. I love Nottingham Forest. I think they could play our era, the way they play football. And that's why they're so high up, because they're just no nonsense. Yeah. They get the ball as fast as possible up front and then play offwards or get it to the wings. 2 fast wingers. Gibbs, he's doing what you're saying, getting in the holes, making sure that making it tick and do your magic. That's all. Football is quite simple, but we've made it a little bit more complicated than it should be. So it's it's brilliant, man.
We get onto a bit of the football. Let's get them out of the way, because we talk about them every week at the moment. Yeah.
You're bored of it. Like,
I said it last week. You have to keep talking about these.
In the group chat.
I'm just like, poor. And like, he said they need to finish this season and start again next year. He said, my job's so hard here. I'm just like, in the actual game, they should have actually scored.
Yeah.
Like, they had chances, but they were still poor. Yeah. Like, Tottenham, like, in midfield, just getting on the ball, they had loads of space, but they both just seem poor. Like,
what, the game was poor?
Yeah, but they had chances to score, but he doesn't want to change his system or anything. I'm like...
So what are we saying about his in terms of him with his system? Because I think people are going, oh, like he should change his... And I'm like, listen, he plays a 3-4-3, right? That's his system. Don't change it. Like, tweak maybe little things in between it, right? But you still keep the same...
Tweak as the game's going along, maybe.
Yeah, but don't change formation, right? Just do that, but just change little scenarios that... Because I know they're ravaged with injuries at the moment, right? But certain people are still going to come into them positions where they're going to need to adapt and learn. So if the striker drops in, one of your centre-backs can go in with him. Do you know what I mean? And if that happens, then they cover... As you say, basic kind of stuff.
Basic stuff.
So I don't think people go, he's got to change it, he's got to adapt. Don't change your tactics or your formation. Just
it's getting them players to be able to do what you want them to do.
Understanding the job at hand.
There's a manager that stands out for me. Obviously had some great managers, but it was Gus Poyet at Brighton. Yeah. And a lot of them players had come from lower divisions. But the way he got the players to play, the way he did the training tactically, like, he had some all right players just playing really good football. He plays some great football, and that's what a manager has to be able to do, is get them players to do what you want. Yeah, really.
Does that come down to motivation, motivating the players to do that?
Motivation is getting the way you want to play, getting that idea over to them, and then they've got to execute it.
Yeah, but it looks like he's doing that. but they're not executing.
But he's trying to do it.
He's trying to,
can't do
so that's why I'm saying, what else does he need to do for those players to actually get it and start performing? Because when I look at it, I think, yeah, being stubborn, it's all right to be stubborn and not coming away from your philosophy. But you got to also take in... You look at, what's his name, say, Højlund.
Yeah.
Are they playing to his strengths to get goals? You know? Yeah. Can he play the way he wants, Amorim wants? I'm going to say no. You know?
At one point, because he'd run, they put a ball over the top when he got on the end of it.
Yeah, he'll chase it.
He'll chase it, but he does that. But tactically, I'm saying, is it suiting him? Is he understanding the job that he has to do?
The players to play that for what he wants to do at the minute. That's why I think he's saying. That's why he's saying, yeah, I want to get this season out of the way, which means they've got to try and offload players, which is going to be not impossible, but for the wages that they're on, because they're on like ridiculous.
I feel like they
and then get players in.
They're going to have to. They are going to have to. I feel like they should get through this season, and start again. When people talk about them in relegation battle, though, I can't see it.
Well, you can't see it, but
the way they are playing,
switch.
That's a massive game.
Yeah, but I mean, they're 12 points. Clear of relegation at the minute. Yeah, but
it's enough. Like, it's tough down there for them teams. They ain't going to get many more points.
No.
Do you know
or do we just accept the fact that, like, United have had their period, like Liverpool done theirs.
They're just not good anymore.
It's like a big rebuild, but that takes time.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So now we
sacking managers don't help.
Yeah.
Look at Chelsea.
So we just accept that they're just going to be at the moment a kind of a mid-table trying to chase Europe while they get themselves going.
Is Amorim the man for that, though? Like, you're going to say, do you know what? I believe in Amorim. You think he is the man?
100%, yeah. Okay. I like him. I like him a lot. Well, look at it this way. Look at Areola at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
When he came in, didn't win, I think, didn't win their first 10 games.
Everyone was questioning.
Everyone was on him.
Yeah.
All of a sudden now, they're blowing teams apart.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, so you got to give... listen.
You've got to give him time.
Yeah.
It is true. Like,
United and Spurs, probably the most...
underachievers.
And confidence probably has dropped as well massively going into these games.
Got some players back, those Spurs, haven't they?
They're starting to creep back. Yeah. And do you know what? I actually, because with Ange, he does go up and down, doesn't he? Right?
Yeah, he wasn't great in his post-match last week.
Oh,
he said he needed a night out with us to cheer up a bit.
You look like a broken man.
But what do you expect? Because he came out and said the other day, he said, listen, just give us a bit of credit, right?
Yeah.
Like, our squad is where it is. I'm playing kids. I'm asking them to do this, Thursday, Saturday. And I was like, do you know what? Fair play, actually.
That's what I said.
When you're winning, it's all fine. Like, we've been in dressing rooms where it all just papers over the cracks. When you're losing, and then there's a few little things going on, and trains.
It's the mentality side, the confidence side.
Yeah.
So do you reckon he's secured his job for now? Because
Ange?
Yeah. Do you think?
Oh, for now, yeah.
I don't think Daniel Levy's not going to pull the trigger.
Results.
He's not going to pull the trigger on.
It only takes a few good results, mate. You turned a corner.
Yeah. And again, Spurs are very much like United. You can't just keep changing manager. Look at the managers that's been at Tottenham.
Yeah.
Right before. They've all been proven winners.
Yeah.
Right?
Conte,
and now they're all doing really well when they're in their jobs now.
Yeah.
And I think Jamie Redknapp said, didn't he, as well? He said, when Spurs come under fire and there's a bit of pressure, the first thing is to sack the manager. Mm-hmm. You've got to just stick by him.
Yeah, let it breathe.
I think stick by him. I think, I mean, it doesn't help when he said he always wins things in his second season. He's put himself under massive pressure there. But he got a chance with Europe. But then,
listen, we're talking about Spurs, and then you've got, obviously, the thing with Daniel Levy. You got the fans are protesting now. And there's a lot. I know a few of the boys as well. There's a supporters club that are just not having it, thinking you are the problem. The way I look at it, I listened to Defoe, Jermaine Defoe last night. He was brilliant, and he said, "Look, Daniel Levy has probably put so much heart and effort, and he's actually put his money where his mouth is, and it's just not responding. He's not got what he wants out of what his money's been invested in. Now, when I look at the whole scenario, when a owner puts their money into something, obviously they want it to grow and be better, but it's not happened that way for their first team squad. And as a whole of the club is unbelievable. Like, if you go to the stadium, it's state of the art, the training ground, state of the art. He's pumped money into that club. He's pumped money into the squad as well. Yeah. Are they buying the right players? I think they are now. I think they're going for the younger boys now. I think they're trying to build towards something. Now, are the fans being a bit too harsh on Daniel Levy and their stance with him? Because they haven't won anything for quite a while. Yeah, so they're trying to say the buck stops with you, kind of thing.
So, again, you go back to, it can't be all the previous managers. They can't all be wrong, right? And they was all top managers. Now, you actually look where Spurs are at this current time, and you're right. The squad, the players, the stadium, the training ground, the infrastructure, the whole thing. It should be doing better. Yeah. Can't just keep going, right, it's not working, to sack the manager, get the new one. So there's going to come a time where you're going to look at the hierarchy, but if you're looking at someone to run a business, run an organisation, profits, make money, I don't think there's anyone better from the outside looking in than Daniel Levy. But then it crosses the line of going, right, well, we're getting a point now where we need to start winning trophies. Yeah. Now, again, does that come to a motivational thing? Is it a mentality thing where Spurs can get to finals or get ahead of firing cup competitions or the league, and then towards the end they just tail off and always have done. So, but the fans have got every right, especially now, to go, we've got everything in place. Yeah. It's just that final hurdle. But what is the magic? What is the magic
formula? It's a conundrum over there, isn't it?
No, I'm just a little bit like, just give it, again, it has to be given a bit more time. And just ride this bit out, the injuries there's having and everything.
How much time, though? It's been happening for quite a while. The one thing that disappointed me with...
But this period right now,
I get it,
could be a little bit of a turning point.
The one thing that could have given them a little bit of respite, is if they was going to plan to sack Mourinho, sack him after the final. He got to the final.
I think that's a personal one, though.
Oh, I get it.
We don't always know everything that's going on.
I think that was a contractual one. I think it's actually a contractual one, because maybe they had to give him more money or something like that if he'd have won something, because you know how contracts work. We don't see what the contract says. But when I look at that, you can't be personal, because you're trying to... I know what you're saying about personal. It's a personal one. But it can't be personal when you've got other people's hopes and dreams online. That means then you're not the right man for the club. If you're going to sack somebody when you've actually got a massive chance of winning some silverware, which you ain't won in years, and you're going to say that's personal. Do you know what I mean? I can't have that. I can't have that. And so I think it is personal, because it's something to do with a contract. That's what I feel. And I just think you made the wrong call. Whatever you needed to do, get that over the line for the fans. And it appeases the fans for a little bit as well. And then you can do what you want after.
If you want to win a trophy, there's no one better for a one-game...
I know.
...than There isn't, and that's a fact. But, look, I think if we're talking about Spurs fans at the moment, they got every right to go in and go, right, what needs to be done? Because at the minute, it's not working. And something needs to change, but I think it's right. I don't think it should be the manager, because... Judge him when he's got everyone fit and they're fit for 3 or 4 months.
Judge him on this last period.
All right, so someone told me a little story about Ange, and him always got something to fall back on. And I heard that he's done this at Celtic as well. Like, he's had this same kind of thing when he gets found out. Gets found out, his plan's not working. He doesn't have a plan B, and then. So this is the second time this happened. Someone told me this is a Celtic fan actually. So this has happened before with us when we got found out up at Celtic. Then he jumped ship anyway, and he had a great start. Then he tails off. Is it the same formula that's happening now again? Because he had a great start, then he tailed off, and then the excuses started to come out. And apparently his injury list is down to his doing and how he works with the team. Train regime is always like there's a lot. I think there's a lot of hammies in there, a lot of muscle injury, and it always happens. And then it starts to go kaput. So I'm looking at.
It's all your fault, Ange.
I'm not saying that. This is a little birdie told me that might be an Ange problem too on this situation.
Well, let's see if he gets everyone fit then.
Yeah, and then there's no excuses after that.
Then it is his fault.
Yeah. We always try and protect first, but we've got to balance it. It's a balanced conversation.
Let's go the other end of the league. Liverpool Wolves 2-1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Slot said you can never breathe in the Premier League title race, which is true. We all know that anyway.
Yeah.
They grinded out a result.
Yeah. Tough game, Wolves.
Very tough game.
They got some players there, but mate, every game is not easy.
No, it's not
You're
easy.
never going to win it, and there's going to be the majority where you blow teams apart.
Yeah.
But they're games like these. I love winning these games, right, more than any other game. So on the weekend, my lad, he had a game, and they was 2-0 down, 2-1 down at half time. Right, pitch was terrible, the ball was terrible, referee wasn't great. Just Sunday League, just me and me, right, and. I was like, boys, so like, I run the line, because one, it's freezing cold, I want to keep winning. But as they broke off and then they done their team talk and then they come back, I was like, boys, listen, these are the best ones. So you win these games, you're going to have a great weekend. They're better than winning this, than like popping a ball around, winning fun. Yeah. There's no better away from home, is it? It's like, it's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had one with under 10s before. We were winning 1-0 and it was a tough game. I was like, this is all, I want to play, I want to do that. No, do you want to win?
Yeah.
This is just all fight for each other now and protect the goal. Exactly. They are the best.
And there where you find your characters, your personality of the group, of the team, individual. Yeah. So, it's never easy every game, but that was a big win.
It was massive. Do you know what they did? They capitalised when they needed to. When they exposed Wolves a little bit, got the goals they needed.
Got in early as well.
Yeah, but it was.
Cunha, what a player he is, by the way.
Yeah.
Like that goal was beautiful. Is that his weaker foot? Yeah, because you can see on the technique. It was like that's how I would hit it. But I would go rosette. But I'd look at it. I said, this guy could do both feet. He's unbelievable. This boy.
Do you think they can get caught, Liverpool?
No.
They got 3 tough games coming up.
They have, but
they got Villa away, City away, and Newcastle.
No. Yeah, and if they get through that...
So when they get through this, you think it's yours. If they get through it looking good, then it's done, isn't it?
I think they're gone. And the only closest is Arsenal. But I think...
I can't see them
winning. Dropping points.
Yeah, the reason why I say that as well, because not just the dropping points, but I just think they ain't got a striker.
Arsenal.
Yeah, and that will make them come up short. If they go on to win the rest of their games this in the league, I'd say that's half a miracle.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you need, and I saw the relief. I saw Declan. So Mourinho scored 2, and I thought Nwaneri is
not a striker as well, by the way.
I know he's not a striker; he's a makeshift, but he was doing the strike as well really well. That means that shows his football intelligence, but at the same time, he's good at following instructions. He's been told what to do, to how it's going to fit in the system. And he's gone and attacked it. And then when you got players like that can feed him, like Nwaneri, he was unbelievable. He hit the crossbar, he hit the woodwork. So he was on fire. Odegaard doing what he does. You've always got a chance when you've got those type of players in your team. I did feel sorry for Raheem Sterling though, where I feel that did he start down the middle and then he got taken off and then Marina come on, like. How do you feel? So has that ever happened to you guys when you've started the game and then you get replaced and then they go on to win the game?
I've had that a few times.
How does that feel? Because I used to feel so bad. I was like, oh my God, he's going to score the hat-trick. That means I'm crap.
You're probably just like, how am I going to get back in the team now?
I think we always...
It distances yourself away from the team a little bit more, doesn't it?
We always look at that on a personal thing, and that's right, because someone's come on and done the job that you haven't done.
Yeah.
But really... You look at it from a club and fans point of view, and it's a squad game now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that now the modern player accepts kind of being on the bench, knowing that they're going to come on and make an impact.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think with Arsenal, I just don't see him catching Liverpool. I just don't, because Liverpool have been the best team this year. Like, hands down, they've been the best team. Salah has been, like, considering at the start of the season, when your top 3 players of Van Dijk, Salah and Trent are all up for contracts, no one's saying nothing. It doesn't really look like they're going to renew. And still to be, as them 3 individuals and collectively and Slot just go week in, week out, bang, bang, bang. If they don't win it this year, it'll be
travesty.
I think I see something yesterday. At this period, at this time in the league, to be that many points clear, everyone apart from one team.
Newcastle.
Is it Newcastle? Yeah. They're the only team that's thrown
I'd love it.
away.
I'd love it if we.
So is that actual fact? Yeah,
that's actual fact.
Newcastle
Yeah,
the only team.
The only team.
Did I see it? Was they 12 points in front as well?
They were 12
it was 12
points.
clear.
I think it was from 6 or 7 the points gap was it this time of
Yeah.
year has always been. That team's always won it.
Oh my god!
So I can't see it happening.
How much Kevin must have been feeling at that time, man.
That was a great interview. That one.
I'd love it. I'd love it.
You know why? And that's again the mind games of Sykes Ferguson.
Yeah.
I think it was about. Was it about Forest or someone saying, "Oh, I bet they go there and because it's Man United, is they get up for it." But then once it's maybe let them win. But
City, let's talk about our old team, all of us, Chelsea. Yeah. You was the number 9 over there for a bit, weren't you?
I was the 9 dog.
Let's talk about this. I know you've talked about this before, but this is interesting to me because actually the number 9 is over at Chelsea is supposed to be cursed.
Yeah.
The number 9 dog.
Who's had it then?
Hasselbank's the only one I think had it that's been successful for quite a while.
I mean,
did you take off Jimmy, did you?
No,
I did take off Jimmy.
Belarus.
No one wanted it. Everyone wanted. Like, I don't understand.
So it was literally given to me, wasn't it?
Go on.
The quick story. I've said it
about
before. The quick story was so our first day of pre-season, we flew to LA, didn't we?
Yeah.
We literally that was our first day. So we're getting on the bus to leave Cobham to go to the airport, and as I'm getting on, Jose's on the front. He said to me, "You got the number 9 shirt." Right?
What?
And I was like, all right, but like as I'm walking past, he sort of said it like quickly.
Blase.
And I'm thinking, he's trying to mind you up. Like, I'm thinking early doors, but Joe said mind games. I've just gone, okay, not worries. Thinking, is he testing me early doors? I'm getting tested on the bus. And then I sit down and I sit next to Big Tell and Robbo, and I'm like, he just said I got the 9 dog, and he went, yeah, it's all printed up. It's in the skip. It's underneath, and I'm like. Oh my gosh! Because when you sign for a club, I don't know what you boys you always look at but you look at numbers already, didn't you? Yeah. And Jeremy left that summer before, went to Newcastle when he had 14, and I'd wore 14 at previous clubs.
So he was eyeing that up.
I was eyeing that one up.
Yeah.
And then he gave me the 9 shirt.
Asked to change it. You just thought, I'll take it.
Oh, well, yeah, I can't.
You can't.
Because again, I'm thinking...
He's demanding. He's got your number 9. I'm trying to get choice in this.
So mate, because again, when you sign for a club and that, and especially Chelsea, which is obviously a home club team for me, and all my friends and family are Chelsea fans, straight away you're getting texts, what shirt you got? When I said I got the number 9 shirt, mate, my mates were crying. They were cracking up. Even my dad was like, number 9.
Is this banter?
But... Yeah, listen, I'd wear any number shirt to wear to play for that club. They're in a bad state at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not looking good in terms of performance.
Yeah. Like, I look at him.
Brighton were good though.
I was talking about this the other day. I was thinking, when you look at that dressing room, just look at the dressing room.
Chelsea's
dressing room, not ours. But we look at their dressing room. I look at it, I think, okay. You got the big performers. You got Cole Palmer, who apparently I heard that hasn't even actually performed against the top 6 yet. And then I look around, apart from Cole Palmer, you got Neto.
Yeah,
he looks a decent player. Obviously Madueke when he's on form. I can't see any leaders, even at the back line. I don't see any leaders.
I think that's the most important thing is leaders at the back.
Where am I getting my inspiration from when the chips are down? Like, I look at it, I remember being in dressing rooms where I have to see, okay, that's the leader right there, or there's about 5 of them.
Yeah.
And you know where you're going, you know your direction, and if you don't perform, they're going to dig you out. When they get to half-time, some of these lads, who's the one that's digging them out? Or are they just sulking? Or, I would love to be a fly in the dressing room at Chelsea just to see, because they're all talented, majorly talented, but I just don't know. And now when I look at who players, when players sign and the format, you signing good players, brilliant players, but what is their character? I'd rather sign a lesser player, but know that he's a leader and he'll lead the team. Do you know, you'd always need one of those in your team. At least one.
You need a lot of them in your team, really. If you look at when we were at Chelsea, there's loads of them, aren't there? Loads
especially
of
if you're looking to challenge for a title, which they're not at the minute, and that's been the remit. So I get what you're saying, right, and I totally agree. But you got to look at their model at the moment. Their model is right. Last year, or so the last 2 seasons, their model is we're going to buy all the best young talent in England, Europe, and the world. Right, so. They got the youngest average team in the Prem this year. I think it's like 23 years old. They've not played no one over 30, right, in the Premier League game this season, right? That's mad. So when you start buying all the young talent, okay, then it's about, right, we need to get a head coach that's going to develop them as quickly as we can, right? Now, we all know in football, players develop quicker than others, right? So it's a waiting game as well. Now, there's a remit of as well, when you buy these young talent, you need to see like their characters, right? So when I look at Chelsea now, up until probably Christmas, when they was playing well, when they was performing well, it's all fine, right? And then when it starts getting a bit of a rocky patch, then it's a case of like who's not digging who out, but who's the leader, who's pulling people together, and that shows with their performances. So like I think their first half to second half performances have been literally chalk and cheese in terms of scoring goals and conceding. So then you're like, listen. There's got to be someone there to go in, right, for 5-10 minutes. I mean, but there's loads of factors to this as well. Their backline's been very disjointed with injuries.
Yeah, they've never had a solid backline, have they?
I think Sancho, Madueke and Kunku's been a bit, unfair because they had a run of games. They need to step up to the plate.
It's all on Cole Palmer at the moment.
Yeah, there's loads of factors to it. But
it's been that for a while though. I've done it
since last season.
But it's just I think they're in a project and they've overachieved this year. When they got to second and 2 points behind. I say they should never have been there, but that weren't a true reflection.
And Maresca did say that as well. He did say,
since he said that,
we're not going to win the league.
That it went to rubbish.
He should have said nothing. He should have said, you're right, since he said that. That's quite interesting.
But it is a project. We've got to remember that. And I think for them, if they get top 4 this year, it'll be, I think top 5 actually gets you Champions League now, which will be a great achievement for them. And then then you build on it again. So I'm not worried because in terms of where they're going, they're actually, they are
better than what they were, definitely.
Yeah, and also you've got to say to Maresca, he's been brave when he's gone in there, having all them players to go, right, you lot, this is my group. I'm leaving some big names out here, and it's easy for you to go, when it's broken or it's not working here, I'll swap him out, get another one in, do this. He's just gone, no, this is it. This is it. So take my hat off to him. But can we just talk about the goal as well?
That's what we're going to. So I was going to get to that.
Another long ball from the goalie.
Whoa.
Long ball, man.
Long ball from the goalie again. It's happening, isn't it? Yeah, direct.
I told you the direct. Where's the?
That would never happen back in our day, though, would it?
What do you mean?
Long ball from a keeper. That wouldn't happen.
Yeah, not well.
Not in your team. Not in your teams.
No.
Not in your teams. I did. I got it all the time.
Yeah, but they're going long to hit areas. Like he's going now,
running in behind.
It's like literally a quarterback just to go right. I'm hitting a spot that like it's like a radius of probably 5 yards. Whereas when we was playing, if they was going to go long, it was going to go up to Didier to just get all of it. Whereas now, but the way he's pulled that out over his shoulder and just killed it.
It's delightful, and that's what I'm saying. Brighton for me, right? This is your old club.
Yeah.
My old one as well. Played.
You played for Brighton too, yeah. Like Brighton for me, what their model, what they achieved, because they're getting players like Mitoma. No one's heard of Mitoma before he came. They
got him and loaned him out,
Did they?
Yeah, so that's what they do with a lot of their players. They get them in the building and then they loan them out and then they come bring them back when they're ready or established.
And it happened with the midfielder.
Basuma, Casado, Baliba.
So they're doing this and it works for them. But when they sell them for 100 million, they've got someone else to come in.
Yeah,
and it's bizarre how it keeps on working. And no one's figuring it out, or no one can copy the model. I think, obviously, you got Chelsea that's trying it with a different way. They're taking some of
from Brighton,
exactly, and it's just a lovely sight to see when you can see a club like Brighton, who are not the biggest club in the world, but they've got now you can see how good they are, and they're beating teams like Chelsea that you'd say they're the bigger names, and I think. When you got like Minte, so Minte's come on the scene, he scored a double. A superb double at that. He could have got a hat-trick. Like, where's he come from? Like, I didn't even know about him. Now he's coming in.
They've got their own like as you say, they're their own recruitment.
Yeah,
it's their own model. It's their own like analysis. And
don't you go on a lot of stats and stuff, don't
Yeah.
you?
Like Moneyball.
It's Tony Bloom, right?
Yeah, who's an absolute genius.
Yeah.
And they've got their own system. Like they've got their own algorithms within, right? So
there are a few clubs that do that.
But there's a few clubs that are taking
Fulham, Brentford.
Yeah, because I think they used to work together. Didn't
they were friends, weren't they?
So yeah, they got their own algorithms. They know that they can't shop in the same windows as United, City, so they go elsewhere and they say they get like hidden gems and then they just build them up and it fits their system. But, and this is a big but this season for Brighton. They'll look at it, right, and Fabian Herzog has gone in, the young manager. Great
1 years old.
Right, he's a lovely fella as well. We sit down, I've been down to the training ground, and when you're talking to him and his ideas and stuff, it's great, and that's going to take time. But they've got to be looking at this season, right, and looking at your Newcastles, your Forests, your Bournemouths that are above them, going, like, that should be up there. United have tailed off this season, Chelsea are having a little bit of a dip, Spurs... You know, they're going, we should be that. We should be pushing for a top 5. So that would be my only sort of, because, and again, Matoma, we just spoke about, scores great. He set a great bar last year. He's underperformed. João Pedro as well. Some of them have not got to the levels where they were. So that'll come. But yeah, brilliant.
So João Pedro is on the bench now. But one player we've got at West Ham is Ferguson. What did you think of Ferguson? Yeah. What did you think of Fergie?
I like him a lot.
Yeah,
like him a lot. I think he struggled a bit when he got into the team under De Zerbi last season, and he had a little bit of a dip. It was the first time he'd had a dip. Yeah. So you can imagine. I coached him when he was under 18s, and he was coming in. He was great listener, robust. Yeah. Like work ethic was great, and he was scoring goals, and then he just sort of like made the step up really quickly. Yeah. Into the first team, riding the wave. And then when he had a bit of a dip, it was a bit of like, I've not experienced this before. Yeah. And whether he had the right people around him or no one around him to sort of pick him up, that's where he struggled a bit. Okay. And I think now this change of scenery at
West Ham,
which will be brilliant because obviously Potter giving him his debut at Brighton. Yeah. So, but yeah, he's a great talent.
Okay, that's brilliant.
I like him a lot.
There's not many strikers out there worth their weight in gold at the moment. There's not many, so I'd love to see him come and take charge at West Ham, because we've had injury problems. Obviously, Mikel Antonio, and then obviously Fulkrug as well. Danny Ings is injured at the moment as well, so Ferguson might get his chance to really have a good go.
I think he will. Yeah, he'll play.
Listen, Man City. Man City, they got a late surge. Like, they've just beat Newcastle 4-0. I did not see that coming.
No.
I thought it was going to go the other way.
Yeah.
Because of obviously what's been going on at Man City. They've not hit the dizzy heights of what we know what they're about. You reckon they got a late surge?
I don't know about a late surge.
Nah?
Might get a few results.
It's Man City.
They're going to go win the title. I can't see. Do you know what I mean?
But you can.
But I can see him climbing.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. If there's anyone that can go on a run of 8, 9, 10 games.
I know it's a massive statement. Someone was comparing the new signings. Nico Gonzalez.
Oh, Gonzalez, yeah.
Comparing him to, like, Rodri. It's obviously early, but if you looked at the way he played...
Well, they missed him so much, haven't they?
They just looked better, didn't they? He was intercepting passes, tackling... He was passing through the line. Yeah. Like, they just looked better.
Looked better, yeah.
So much better.
I didn't get to see the game. I just saw the goals.
He held there. You know, he's intercepting passes. He was pressing at the right time.
What they've been missing, basically.
Yeah, and then, like, he was... there was one time he was taking Newcastle players just out of the game, like...
One pass.
Straight in between them, Foden on the turn. There was, like, loads of little bits like that. And
so does it look like it's coming together? Or it just looks more cleaner? And... because it was a little bit bitty before. Even there was some passes are going off the field sometimes when I watched them before, and I've never seen them like that. So I was thinking they are low on confidence. Yeah. But hopefully this might be a kickstart for them, you know. And you never know what could come from it, you know. My local team, Palace.
Yep.
And Everton. Palace lost to Everton. Yeah. What is going on at Everton at the moment, bro?
Well, just quickly on Palace. I know Palace fans, and they should have won that game. Like Everton scored against one play. Like, I don't know where we see it. Did you see the goal where the fella's thrown it? It's basically like it's a throw into Palace, and he's thrown it. Basically, he's give it to Everton and went on and scored against the run of play. So Palace should have got a result out of that, but Everton, wow, he is David Moyes. Well, listen, you've obviously Moyes, you've worked with him, but he's gone in and
shaken the place up,
changed it all up, hasn't he?
I don't think he's. The thing about it, I think it comes with a little bit of luck as well. You know how the game goes when you're trying your hardest and it's not coming off. Then there's a change of personnel, there's change of a leader, and you're looking and thinking, do you know what? My whole energy's changed. Now I can create luck for myself, kind of. You know how it is in the game, and it's just it's going their way at the moment. You know, like everything's going their way.
Start for everyone in the club, and a new manager comes. Start for all the players, and it only takes like something little to change your confidence, like your mentality changes a little bit, and you go out and, like you said, even the top teams, you get through those bad patches. Everton have gone, grinded out a result, but they've been doing well before that. It's just, I think it's a confidence and mental side of the game sometimes.
It's mad, because you think, like, you look at Sean Dyche and you think, like, for him to go into a new club, he'll bring that. It just been a bit stagnant, didn't it, I think, with him. And he said that. I think that before he left, I think he came out and said, look, I think I took him to as far as I could have got in. They just weren't really receptive no more. But obviously you've worked with Moyes. Just quickly, what would he have done when he would have gone in that would have just given him a lift?
He would have had, first and foremost, he would have had a meeting with all of them. Like, maybe individually or maybe the captain, and just to get to understand the squad. And I understand that Moisey, when you walk to the room, he brings life to the room. He's like a very happy-go-Larry guy. And you know what he's doing. He's got the proof in the pudding. So as a player, you're going to listen to him, especially when you need him to stay up. So you're going to say, OK, I need to respond to this guy. So as you said, there's a different energy comes in. There's a different vibe, and he's going to bring that. And he brings his playing staff, his backroom staff as well, that'll try and get into the lads and make everyone feel good, get that feel-good factor again. And I think that's what's worked for him. And then he's not done much tactically different to what was there before, and the players are still the same. So it must be something that he's saying to them, his man management skills must be that's turned the corner, and probably a little bit more organisation. You know, that's might be all that it takes for a team like Everton to respond. And then I don't know how far that's going to take them. Like, it might get them to a certain point, but then he'll have to reshape. And he's actually good at reinventing himself, David Moyes. So we'll see how that goes. But he's doing really well now. He's winning the games that they need to win. And there's a feel-good factor around Everton again. I think the fans are loving it. They are. You know, and I remember when your mate,
you know Carl, Welsh Carl.
Remember when he was fuming?
He wasn't happy about Moisey. Wasn't happy at all.
What, going in there?
Yeah, he compared him to a Sunday roast. He said, all I've got is veg. He said, no meat, no Yorkshire, no nothing. Got eight boys, bit of veg.
A bit of gravy on it.
Wow. He's eating his words now, Carl is.
Yeah. Oh, mate. No, I want to see him eat his words as well.
You'll see him Saturday. He's out.
I can't wait to see him. What are you going to say now?
Dressing room day out. He's out. If you come in City, you're more than welcome.
I'll step in there.
Right. Did you lot see Real Madrid?
Oh,
I haven't seen it. I heard
Jude
about
Bellingham.
it.
You know. Listen. I love Jude. I love him. I think he's a top guy. I think he's a winner. That's the thing. He's a proper
always said
winner.
He's a winner.
Yeah.
Even so that when I was doing my badges, and we got to interview him, me and a few of the lads, on our A license, and his mum and his dad on one call, and his ex-coach, and he used to throw a strop when things weren't going his way at Birmingham when he was young, like as a kid, and then the coach was telling us how he had to like kind of pull him in and just say, listen, nah, don't act like that. You need to respond in a different way. And it was all to do with his being a winner and knowing how to control that aggression and that fight. And he didn't know how to express it. So he would sulk and he'd tell the coach to shut up or whatever. Like that. Do you know what I mean? And because he was so good, better than everyone else, he wanted the team to be as good as him. So he was just always frustrated. Now, when it comes to, obviously, when you see something like that and you've got that winning mentality inside you, and the referee has a boo-boo, and he messes up, he's going to say something. Now, he says, it's the way you say certain things in life, innit?
Yeah.
And the way it actually comes out your mouth. Politically, he is, like, you look at it, he's kind of correct. He's not said F you to the referee. He said F off ref, like, kind of thing. Like, and I understand the way he's probably saying it like I don't know if he's saying it like in a bantery way.
Yeah.
Or, oh, come on, ref. Like, but he's used but he's obviously said that word.
He's been sent off for dissent. Yeah, that's what we're saying. And the referee
12 match.
You get a 4 to 12.
Right. But because the referee's saying he's told me directly to F off.
Yeah. I haven't seen the footage, but has he kind of gone up to him, like, right in his face? Obviously, I remember back in the day, you know, something goes on, you're involved in it, and the ref makes a decision, it's like, oh, F off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't see it as a real personal attack, but I don't... That's the way that they've interpreted it, I guess, and he's saying it isn't like that. Yeah. You've seen it, Carlton. Was it like...
No, so I haven't seen it, but I can imagine it. Because, I'll tell you what, because I've read about it, I had to read it, and look, there's a cultural difference in the way...
Oh, yeah, the way that...
Everyone's...
Definitely.
Do you know what I mean? It's like the way we would say a bad word to each other, it might be... it would be like might be a sign of endearment.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And for other cultures, it'll be like, how the hell did he say that to you? Like, you let him get away with that kind of thing. But that's where the culture difference is. And I don't know... I think he's already learned Spanish. So he'll probably know what he can and cannot say. And he's quite smart. The boy is very, very... He's got high IQ. So whether he's trying to get away with...
He's learnt now what he can and can't say.
Well,
His lesson.
Yeah.
But I always think, like, when you get into trouble, you kind of dumb yourself down. Like, you don't understand what's going on. Oh, what? I didn't know you can't say that. Like, I'll do that. Do you know what I mean? Because I play the game. Well, in England, this is how we say hello. You know what I mean? So why are you getting uptight for? I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that, ref.
Yeah.
You know?
I use that line all the time. I didn't mean it like that.
But so for that, I don't know. Like, for an official, I think he can do what he wants now because you've just left the door open for them to do what they want. And I feel that it might be a situation that he might not be able to run away from in this one.
Do you think it needs, like, in rugby, there's zero tolerance for it at all on a ref?
Really?
Yeah,
like, honest. Do you think it just needs nothing at all, mate? Yeah, nothing at all.
I mean, it's
really, if you're gonna, I guess, if you brought that into it, then the player knows he can't say anything or do anything, and you just got to accept.
Can't even have a conversation.
Yeah. Do you know
rather than trying to have a go at the ref, I think
I
maybe
remember
you should be able to talk to the ref.
Yeah.
Sometimes because of in the heat of the moment, it don't always. Come out like whereas
the rugby players we used to talk to the ref all the time, have banter with him. Always, and even in the tunnel.
I mean, if a decision goes against you, you want to.
Yeah, I think it's slowly come into football that sort of rugby sort of scenario where if the referee needs to have a discussion, he'll get the captain in and go, listen. Yeah. I mean, you need to have a word with... And I've seen that in games, and I remember when I was at Fulham and I was captain, you go into somebody at the pre-match when you go and do the team sheets, and I remember some of them going, under no circumstances will I accept any swearing from anyone or direct. So to tell your players that if it will be, there'll be a dissent like a caution straight away. So you got to go in, and the assistant manager will be in there with you to go, listen, lads, whatever you do, ref's on one today. So... don't get nothing silly. Because if you get a caution for a mistake like that...
Yeah, it might be harsh, but again, if that line is drawn and that's it, well, you're going to get on and that's it.
Yeah. I think if you do that, it will certainly draw a line under it over time, definitely, because I think a few might still get caught out in just a sudden change. Yeah. But I just think the way that football is and the way that fans are and the whole emotion of the game, you can't compare it to rugby.
You can't really.
You can't. But I get what you're saying. If it was brought in, it would just definitely
wipe it out. I'll tell you why you can't bring that into rugby.
You can't argue with it then. You can't argue with it.
Different sport as well.
Playing and you a bit of banner.
Yeah.
I remember the ref saying to me, "If you just come on." I was like, I literally, I didn't have nothing to come back to him. I can't remember who it was now, and I was like, effing hell, like what's that? And he was like, it was about, whatever, 60th minute.
Yeah.
And he was like, have you just come on? Did they make a start?
I got that once. I think it might be the same referee because I think that's his party line. He always says that. Yeah. But I had one who goes, "Oh, Coley, you played that position today?" I was like, he says, "I seen you up front today." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I've been able to," and I buy it because I'm in the motion.
I can imagine you.
How dare you say that to me? So I'm biting. I can't have it, but I love the banter with the referee. I don't want that to go, and it's just the boys have to be a bit more responsible on how you talk to a referee. They are human at the end of the day, although sometimes we don't think they are. But they go through their own trauma. Modern diets in football, boys. What are we saying? Like Haaland consumes.
Mate, can I just
a cow's heart and liver.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing this, right, and this obviously comes after the picture that he released on social media with looked like a
pork chop,
tomahawk or something.
Yeah.
Right? Have you not seen the picture?
No.
Mate, it's a
after
massive,
the
like
game,
Viking style, like big.
Mate,
it looked nice to be fair. I'd eat it.
Listen,
I'd eat it.
Listen, what he's holding there.
I'd rather have that than a protein shake.
Listen,
that's true.
What he's eating there, let me tell you now, that's about 350 quid in a restaurant in town. Right? Yeah, after the game, it looks like he's on the treatment table or something. Like, and I'm looking back going, mate, when we come in from games, there'd be a tray of sandwiches. Like our time of change, they got a tomahawk steak on the go after the game.
Mate, it's
how good.
Lucky, I would love that.
I'd love that.
How good was food, right? So when we played, obviously different stadiums and bringing different food, because I don't know, is it a thing that they have to do nowadays? That like
you have to give the other team food.
Yeah,
you do have to give the other team food.
So one stadium,
type of food?
One stadium, one
soggy Sam.
A big pot of tea and some
sandwiches are always soggy,
mate, or dry.
Always,
all dry. Like we used to have some soggy sandwiches or some dry ones with no butter, just cheese.
Yeah,
that's it. And the cheese are probably mouldy as well, and a bit of lettuce in it.
When you used to go to certain stadiums, obviously the football was the most important thing, obviously, but when you finish, you're thinking, whoa, I can't wait to get back in. So Old Trafford always had the pizzas, and they used to have like chip butties. Do you remember the foils? Chip butties, fish finger butties as well. Old Trafford, in the food.
Way.
Yeah. They used to give that. One of the best, I don't know what your opinion on this, Arsenal's. The buffet that Arsenal used to throw on at the Emirates. Yeah, we used to go in the away dressing room. They had the
salad, fruit plate, everything. They had the big spread.
Chicken tenders, drumsticks. There was everything. I was like, wow.
A couple of times, I can't remember.
Oh, that was special.
Where else did we have some good food?
I tell you, it's changed over the years. I remember when I first started, you literally get on the coach. It was you stop off at the local chip shop.
How good was that?
Get a great lager.
Mate,
Mate, that's how it started when I first started.
Way.
No,
a bit older than you.
They used to. Yeah, I remember. So I remember they used to before the game. They used to get your order. Like, so we're going to stop off. We're stopping off at the chip shop on the way home. What do you want? And it was either you could have cod and chips, chicken and chips, or sausage and chips. And then, you'd be like, so then they go, I'll have that, and it'd just be like 1, 2, 3.
And then the coach driver would go, I'll go to the offie. What do you want? You had 3 crates of lager on the
No way.
Yeah.
Oh,
and it kind of, it's just fizzled out, innit? Just
you can't.
Yeah, the game's changed
the
loads.
game's changed. You can't get away with
that diet's like, when he talks about what he eats, it's a healthy diet. Like, it seems healthy to me. Do you know what I mean? The amount of meat you're eating. I'd rather be eating that meat than these protein shakes.
Yeah, that's true.
Because half time I'm like, what's actually in them protein shakes?
Yeah. So he's eating 6,000 calories per day. So, and you're saying that meat. I don't get the cow's heart. I don't get the cow. Have you had cow's heart before?
I've had some heart before.
What heart?
What was it?
What do you mean you don't remember what it was?
I know it was heart, but I don't know what heart it was. It was an animal's heart. It was definitely an animal's heart. I don't know which one. Yeah,
it was.
Do that again. Thank you.
So it's cooked.
Yeah, it's one of them. What's the name of the Brazilian restaurant? They had one in Manchester, and you go in, and there's loads of different meats. So they come round, and they go, "It's all you can eat," and then you just keep eating it. Keep shaving the meat off of different types of meats. And the heart was there. I can't remember which heart it was.
I don't think I could.
It was definitely heart.
Really?
Yeah.
I've not done it.
Can you do that? Can you do a heart?
No.
It tasted good.
What's the craziest thing you've eaten? Oh, that's hey, I don't know why you're. Hey, hold on a minute. We're talking football here, yeah? No.
What's going on here?
That's not quite. It's not, if it's what I think you're thinking about, that's not crazy. That's not crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. Ostrich, what is it? Some of them like
ostrich.
I went in the jungle, didn't I?
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about that.
The only thing was cockroaches and mealworms is the only thing I ate.
You ate a cockroach?
Cockroaches and mealworms, yeah, like a handful. And I ate some other stuff like crocodile in there.
Crocodile?
Yeah.
How does that taste?
Eggs.
How did that taste?
Crocodile was nice, just like tough chicken. It was all right, yeah. I did actually.
If cooked right.
I was that hungry at one point. There was a bird, but when they give you the bird, you've got to like sort it out, and the head was there, and I literally sat there just sucking on the head just for some flavour. That sounds really bad. It was like honestly, I think Joel Dominic's with me. It was just to get a bit of flavour because there's like in the jungle, like the food's not great. Right, anyway, let's move on. Martin, did you see the Martin Keown?
I did see this.
Great vibe.
That's
what we miss now, right?
That is it, wasn't it? So it was. So Martin done the TNT game, didn't he?
Yeah.
And Ruud van Nistelrooy come over for the interview. It must have been. Well, they said it was the second time they've seen each other, but the first time they probably spoke. And what done me straight away was the handshake. So Martin's gone in for the handshake, and Ruud's like shook hand. And Martin's firmed it up. He's like,
you know what he's like, though.
Yeah, mate, that's Martin getting one over on it, mate.
Straight away, he's gone right. Mind game straight away.
Straight in.
But it was good, and I thought he dealt with it really well. Ruud van Nistelrooy, just to
he's
say,
a nice guy, though, isn't he?
But like Martin was saying, he used to be horrible. Like he used to. When he was playing against him, standing on his toes.
That's the dark arts.
But that was football back in the day. I remember Gus Boyer was bad. Kneeing you in the back, stamping on the
I got taught to do that. You've got to do that.
You can't do that now, mate.
I know.
It don't happen now anyway.
There's too much cameras about.
They missed that, but there's no real, like, we say there's any rivalries now, like, between players,
players.
You look back in the day, Vieira, Keane.
Yeah.
There was
that was brilliant. Did you see the interview
there?
on that the other day? They done an interview together. I think it was Sky Sports. To come together, and it was comparing moments. And how did you feel in this moment? How did you, like that tunnel bust up as well? Yeah. When Roy Keane didn't even see what happened, but he was coming out to protect straight away Gary Neville. Yeah. And I just love to see them. They're face to face across the table like that, and you can see there's still tension there, but they've got respect, mutual respect for each other, and I love that.
The Premier League misses it, I think. Like, I've said it the other day, some games are just so boring.
Yeah.
They miss that in games, that rivalry.
Everyone's mate now because of social media. Everyone's always bigging each other up. Yeah, well done, mate. You had a great game, and they're playing another team. Because I know you through social media. I've met you about 3 times, but I respect you because we've had a little chat, or you've liked one of my pictures on social media. That's what's going on with these boys. They're softer, and they're more.
It's a softer game, isn't it?
It's a softer game, and it's more respectful, I would say. So that's what I'm saying. It's been sterilised.
That's one for you. What's been your toughest opponent? Hardest to play against?
Toughest opponent. So, there's. Like, I look at the period when I played in that Premier League, and then you've got obviously your standout ones that we'll come on to. But even like your ones like Michael Carrick. Like Carrick was an unbelievable football player. Yeah. Cesc Fabregas, Modric. You know what I mean? Like. Players like I'm talking about players that was like direct in and around me midfield players. Like these players don't really get mentioned when you start. People go straight away. People go to Lampard, Gerrard, Scholes. That's all people like in the Premier League. It was that kind of era. So Stevie was just like relentless. After you played with him,
he was
England,
tough as well.
He was hard. He was hard, and you knew when you played 90 minutes against Stevie that you was going to come off battered, bruised, and give a little bit, take a little bit. And it was just going to be like a
proper
hard.
Proper ding.
My one that I always thought I had to think about was Paul Scholes. Because he was just so clever, and he used to go into areas. I'm going, why is he going there? So I'm going this way, and he's going to an area and going, that's like, I've got to worry about that. But he's seeing 5 passes on, so he's seeing the ball go ding, 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 ding there. So by the time I get there, he's turned and just sort of like slung one out wide. And then when he done that, I don't know whether you noticed it as well with him. It's the noise of the ball when he strikes it.
Yeah.
You know, like people think, all football players can hit.
It's a real ping.
Like when he hits a ball, it's like a golfer, like nailing one out of the middle. It's like a boom.
Yeah.
And when it's like across your head, it's like, and you're like, I was like, wow.
You know where I heard that from? I heard that. So it was, I see Ruud Gullit train. Yeah, I got the privilege to see Ruud Gullit train when I was younger. And I was on the same pitch, actually. So I was picking the ball up. And I just saw him just pinging balls. And you know when someone hits the ball so pure, you can feel that this is different energy. This is like, he knows what he's doing. This is the ball's his friend. Do you know what I mean? He pings it, he just goes boom, and it just goes straight. It's a different sound.
It's different.
And when it's going through the air, it's like a jet going through the air. It's like, I'm like, mate, this is a different level. This is world class. Do you know what I mean? Do you know who else was like that? Mascherano. Yeah. Mascherano used to ping a lovely ball as well. He used to give it a little bit of gunga as well. He used to do any kind of style off the floor, just off
every pass.
I tried it. My knee went out of place. But but when you see these, I just think it's artistry. I think it's like it's an art. You used to ping a great ball as well.
Yeah.
Oh, Tom Huddleston.
Tom Huddleston.
His
left and right foot.
Oh,
he was
left and right.
Yeah, he could spray it.
He was like Glenn Hoddle.
Yeah,
I heard about him.
No, he was good.
I heard about him.
He had me at Southampton. He was still joining in training. He could ping a ball, mate.
Yeah,
he was a joke. He used to join in. I remember Chris Mars used to hate him.
Yeah.
Because he used to always it's just a shot. He used to shut off. He used to try and smash him all the time, mate. Couldn't get near him, mate. He couldn't get near him, though. He was after him, mate. I think he might have caught him once, I think.
He's a legend.
So going back to Scholesy, right, and I don't know whether I had this preempted into me, because when I was coming through Arsenal, and at the time, this is when Arsenal and Man U were going for league titles and everything. They was like the hatred, the rivalry. So being a young pro Arsenal and the build up to them games, you'd find out on the Monday that it was obviously geared all up for Man U, right? And I remember now, so we're talking to the top players at Arsenal, so with Thierry, Perez, Bergkamp, all they used to say to Patrick and the midfield boys, Petit or whether it's whoever else going to fill in, they'd be like, listen, stop Paul Scholes, right? Don't let him get his head up, stop him and we win the game. And that's like them players there, they rated Scholesy so high. And it was like, he just literally dictates everything. You stop him, you stop the supplier to everything else. So I don't know whether that was just into me. Then when I finally come through and then got into the Premier League and played against him, it was a case of, wow, this is like...
Tell you what he had in him as well. He had a rattle in him. Yeah. He could rattle you.
Oh, no.
He had like tough opponents.
His tackles. Like, I was like... This guy he can't tackle, you know that, right?
Yeah.
Paul Scholes
he can tackle, mate. Don't worry about
that. He tackle you, but it's not clean.
Yeah. That's what I mean, mate. He'd put it on you.
He'd put it on you. I remember, I swear down, if my foot was planted, he would have broken my leg.
This is how I knew he had it in him, like, proper, was when we were away of England. So England, like, so we're training before games. And Joe was he did something to Keown, like, doing all these step overs. I think he might have sat him down. You could Scholesy one happy. Must have done it to Scholesy, mate. 2 minutes later, Scholesy has gone bosh, straight up in the air, nowhere near the ball, and just walked off like it's nothing. That's your teammate. Joe just got up and just like carried on. Yeah. But I was just like, oh my god, he's got it in him.
Let him
just,
know,
he'll let you know. You can't do that now, though. Everybody's straight read some of the challenges back in the day.
I think that's in the Man United waters over there, man. Because I think when I first went away with England, Gary Neville was still in the squad, right? And I swear down, I was having a great time. We was doing was it 8v8 or whatever he was doing. And then I think I got past him, mate. He ran me down, and he just tackled me from behind. Bosh! And I was like, surely this is not fair. And is anyone going to blow up? Because no one said anything. No one said anything. I'm like, oh, this is what it is, yeah? So I think it's in the Man United waters over there that they'll have to give it. They've got to leave a bit on you.
Imagine their five-a-side the day before a game. Because you know the five-a-side was like we used to do the little round robins today, but on a Friday, day before, they used to get feisty.
Yeah.
Anywhere. Imagine it at United when they was in their pomp.
Roy Keane's not having it. He ain't having you taking a seat. You got to get involved.
Back in Chelsea, it always used to be, because you'd have a big English call there. It'd always be the English be the foreigners all the time.
Yeah, I know. What was that about?
I don't know, but it was always a good laugh, though. It wasn't like there was any bad blood. It was always a good laugh. Because the English were always like,
come on, let's go with the heart.
The British Bulldogs, wasn't it? Yeah. They used to have all the skill, and then us just chatting around.
Getting in there,
Bulldogs. I remember at Villa, we done Young v Old, and there was always that.
We did that.
I was another place where I was at
Old always come out on top.
Yeah, always.
I remember being at a club. It might have been Villa. Because I was about 24, 25, I think then, where I was just on the cusp. So I said, depending on injuries, I'd either be up or I'd have to go down, because I wanted to be with the older ones, where you have to go down to the younger ones. I was like, I'm going to get absolutely battered on Friday.
Those were the good old days, man. Those were the good old days.
Right, I think we've got time for.
We've done the questions with you, Sidney, but
beautiful.
Let's
So, thanks for coming, mate. Thanks for filling for Joe while he's
big seat
a life
to fill.
of luxury on a mountain.
Big seat to fill this. You boys are flying with this. It's been good. I've been watching it from afar. Obviously, we do the podcast, me and Crouchy, and
let's talk about that. Let's talk about your podcast with Crouchy, because you guys are selling out stadiums. We need to get to that level.
I've been a few times. It's a good laugh.
It's one of them, Joe. It's exactly like this. And when you do it with your mates, you can't even call it work. Do you know what I mean? I say to the missus, I'm going, like we're doing today, or we're doing this week, I'm going to work. She's like, you're not going to work. You're talking football. Like,
I love saying it to one of my mates up there. I'm going to work. Oh my God.
But you know what? It doesn't feel like you've got like cameras and mics. It just feels like we're like every day around the pub, and then that's the joy, and that's where the chemistry comes out. And that's why people enjoy it. So listen, we enjoy it. He's obviously the original Podfather, isn't he? So he's still going strong. But
Podfather.
I love coming on.
Do you know what I loved? When I watched you. When you come out and you had Notorious. Did you watch that?
I was there. I'd actually been to a Millwall Saints game, all day, and then turned up and got
is it? The thing I loved about it, because it's Sidney, He's a lovely guy. He's laid back. He's very honest, But so when all the lights was on him, I knew you must have felt a little bit uncomfortable.
No, I reckon he loved it. He loved it, mate. He would have loved it. What are you on about? He loved it, mate. What are you on about?
I was gutting with it. I was like, encore. I need to do one more.
That's what I wanted.
Sidney loved it. You could tell.
Mate, I look back
see the enjoyment he had out.
It was good.
Was it brilliant?
So that quick story, that stems from Notorious, right? So Abby had a 40th birthday. I think it was, or 30th. It was one of her birthdays. Yeah. And Biggie's come on. Yeah. And then we was in the circle, and I was with Serge from Kasabian as well. And I just started rapping, right? I started doing this Notorious rap, right? All the lyrics coming out, and he was like, he couldn't believe it. And Crouchy, he had to basically go back the next day because someone left a coat or a bag, and he got the CCTV up, and he's got the video of it of me rapping.
Oh, is it?
So that it kind of stemmed from that. And then my first episode that I'd done on the pod, I done it with Idris Elba. And one of the lads from production said, listen, we've got Idris on. I'm not going to tell the lads, but do you want to do a rap-off with him, a rap battle? And I'm like, mate, I could do a rap battle with Idris. He's like, that's his bread and butter. I said, what I'll do is, I'll do a rap, but don't tell the lads that I'll do it. And don't tell Idris. And then, mate, I done it first thing. And he was like, he was like, whoa! And I look back now, I'm thinking, I had some balls doing that.
I wouldn't be doing that.
Something else.
So, that's where the Notorious comes from. But, listen, it's great to be on here. It's, I love, obviously, working with you lot. And, filling in for JC is a nice little touch. So.
You get to see Carlton do the little outro.
So
how many takes it takes?
So this is it. Enjoyed having the Sidmeister on here, right? This is the dressing room.
What are we watching?
This is the dressing room with Arabiya News. And listen, see you next week.
Yes, Carlton, love it.
From the White House to Gaza, Kyiv to Beijing, elections, economics and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deep fake and artificial intelligence,
they've got to have a vote and a say.
It's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers.
My campaign is going very well.
Presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers.
As Arabs, as Middle Eastern, we're too emotional.
Join me on The Rizkan Show for empowering conversation.
Hello and welcome to Global News Today, bringing you exclusive interviews with leading experts every weekday here on Arabiya News. I'm Tom Burges Watson. Coming up on today's programme, despite concerns over a shift in US policy towards Russia, the US Special Envoy Keith Kellogg is in Kyiv, where he's holding talks with the Ukrainian President Volodyrmr Zelenskyy and the country's foreign minister. During the course of the last 48 hours, the US President Donald Trump has turned on his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, accusing him of being a dictator and also accusing him of starting the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Kremlin reiterates it would be unacceptable for NATO countries to deploy troops to Ukraine. This is the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says he's ready to put troops on the ground as part of a peace deal. And US President Donald Trump vows to audit the amount of gold reserves being held at the famed vaults at Fort Knox. Hello and welcome to the programme. For the past 24 hours, there's been considerable focus on the war of words between the US President Donald Trump and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Well, the already fragile relationship between the two men has deteriorated to a level that many would have considered to be unthinkable, with President Trump calling President Zelenskyy a dictator and accusing him of, quote, starting the war in Ukraine. He went on to say that he was making the United States then pay for it. He also labelled Zelenskyy as a modestly successful comedian, referencing his career in entertainment before entering politics. Well, President Zelenskyy has fired back, accusing President Trump of living in, quote, a disinformation space created by Russia. Well, President Trump's remarks have raised concerns about a potentially dramatic shift in US policy towards Russia.
He refuses to have elections, is low in the real Ukrainian polls. I mean, how can you be high with every city is being demolished? It's hard to be high. Somebody said, oh, no, his polls are good. Give me a break. Every city is being demolished. They look like a demolition site, every single one of them. And the only thing he was really good at was playing Joe Biden like a fiddle. He played him like a fiddle. That's an expression we use, Yasser, to say that he's pretty easy. A dictator without elections. Zelenskyy better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast because...
President Donald Trump speaking there while aboard Air Force One. The president confirmed that he does indeed trust Russia to negotiate the war in Ukraine in good faith.
Would you say you trust the Russians to negotiate in good faith going forward? Do you trust them?
I do. I think the Russians want to see the war end. And I do. I really do. But I think they have the cards a little bit because, you know, they've taken a lot of territory.
Well, for more analysis, we can cross to Kyiv now and speak to Sergei Petukov, who is a former Deputy Minister for European Integration of Ukraine. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. The US Envoy Keith Kellogg is in Ukraine. What sort of a welcome has he been getting?
He's definitely a person that everybody wants to meet, and he stated that he came to listen. And I hope that he does listen to what people in Kyiv think about the statements made by the US officials. Definitely, he's going to hear that Volodymyr Zelenskyy is not a dictator. He's definitely going to hear from all over the political spectrum and civil society that no one in Ukraine expects any elections in the nearest future, and neither thinks it's possible under the Ukrainian constitution, and that Ukraine expects the United States to stand as an ally in the negotiations to have Ukraine at the table and decide the peace negotiations in a way that is favorable to Ukraine and not play the Putin cards.
Yeah, he's got a busy agenda and he's got a tough job, hasn't he, trying to reconcile one narrative with the narrative he's now going to get there on the ground in Kyiv. And one of the other things you might get an update on, Sergei, is perhaps the reality with regards to Mr. Zelensky's popularity. What is the reality?
Well, the reality is that Zelensky is still quite popular as a president. And honestly, a recent statement by President Trump made him even more popular. So people actually uniting behind him because they don't see the alternative. They don't want any elections right now. So it seems that he's getting the popular mandate from the people. And actually, he's even opposition leaders to lead these negotiations and negotiate the peace to the extent possible. So the reality is quite opposite to what President Trump stated. There's nothing close to 4% support. All the reports say that he still enjoys the 50% plus majority of the support of Ukrainians.
In terms of what he's been discussing there, I'm talking about General Kellogg. He's been meeting with your country's foreign minister, Andriy Sybiha, talking about this just and lasting peace. Has any more information come out with regards to the essence and the substance of their discussions?
Not really. We have not had any official statements so far. And definitely the two biggest questions are going to be for Ukrainian side is the security guarantees. If not NATO membership, what else can really guarantee that Putin will not restart the war as he repeatedly has done since 2014? On the US side, it seems that the question of some sort of control over the Ukrainian minerals will be raised as for some reason that has become an important question for President Trump, and he stated this publicly. Whereas, I mean, Ukraine is not in principle opposed to some sort of agreement, but it definitely has to be an equitable agreement. And also the security guarantees are something that are necessary for any of those agreements to be effective, as most of the minerals that we're talking about are either right now controlled by Russia at the occupied territories or really close to them. So again, I think the real conversation here is that, well, we're ready to give opportunities for U.S. businesses, but we really want to see what are the security guarantees, the real ones that U.S. is willing to provide for Ukraine against another Putin aggression.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to you a bit more about those in just a moment. But since you mentioned minerals and rare earths, I was going to ask you about that later. But do you think that history is going to look back on this Russian invasion of Ukraine and the war that your country's been through these last 3 years as having essentially been a war over these commodities, these rare earth materials? Do you think that's what this was all about from the beginning?
Not really. Honestly speaking, I mean, we don't have anything that is very lucrative or exclusive. You know, the coal deposits that we've been having and exploring for the last several decades are now depleted and are too costly to explore. The other, minerals are not to the extent that make them, exclusive or extraordinary or lucrative. So this whole discussion about the minerals in Ukraine is really, I think, taking away the focus from the things that are important. And I think for Russia, it's not about minerals as such, rather about, controlling more of a territory within Europe, sending a signal to Europe that Russia is back to the times where they want to control what's going on the European continent. And also kind of a, it's an exercise in improving their fallen demographics. So Russia has been losing people at a worrying, tempo, and they do need new people to sort of, to be able to control the vast territory that they're having. So they are deporting Ukrainian children, they are re-educating Ukrainian youth, and they're trying to replete the population that is depleting in the vast expanses of Russia. So I would. If you ask me what kind of resources are Putin interested in Ukraine, that will be people, not the minerals.
OK, but according to Forbes, and I think this is a number used by the Ukrainian government, there's about $15 trillion worth of rare earths in the ground underneath Ukraine. And I just wondered, out of curiosity, whether perhaps that's what had motivated people all along. With regards to the safeguards, obviously, NATO troops on the ground is something that is unacceptable to Russia. Does Ukraine see that as being a must in terms of guaranteeing your security?
Now, look, Ukraine looks at something that is going to work against Russia. And we do know that the agreements signed with Russia are worth nothing. I mean, Russia has repeatedly broken the agreements that we've signed with them, or they promises that they've re-signed it, or they would be just selling outright lies. We've seen this within the last 10 years, so we're not going to trust that. Of course, having some sort of peacekeeping force on the territory of Ukraine is reassuring, be it NATO or UN-led. Also, it's been rumored in the Western press that, at least it's been rumored, that some sort of guarantee has been proposed that in case of another Russian attack, Ukraine will be guaranteed an automatic NATO membership somewhere in the future. This sounds unrealistic, but this is, again, something of an option. So I think Ukraine will try to get the best possible scenario for our people and our country, but we will only trust something that really works. We will not trust in that it's just written on the paper, because we do know that Russia will violate any agreement that it signs.
Yeah, NATO membership for Ukraine is something that President Trump has already put on the table and said to the Russians, OK, that's not going to happen. He's made a couple of other commitments and put a couple of other cards on the table as well. He views them as being realistic pledges, namely as well about Ukrainian territory under the control of Russians. That's not going to go back to Ukrainian control, he says. I mean, how did it go down in Ukraine when, before the conversation had even got started, things were already being given away by Washington?
I can tell you it did not go well. Honestly speaking, on the face of it, it looks like all the cards put on the table by President Trump so far are at Ukraine's expense. We have not seen anything that has been done at the Russia's expense, or even the any plans that would require Russia to resign some of its gains or go on any compromise. This did not go well in Ukraine, neither in Europe as a whole, and I think that's the direct consequence of that is that there's more understanding within the EU and Europe as a whole that Europe will have to take more responsibility in the situation, will have to defend itself and increase the defense spending, and will have to take more responsibility with what's going on in Ukraine. And at least some of the European countries are deliberating on the possibility of sending their peacekeepers to Ukraine, whether it's going to be under the NATO umbrella or in any other arrangement. And President Trump, although he stated that he's not sending US troops to Ukraine, but he said he will not oppose European troops present there. So I think this is at least something that looks like a security guarantee. And if that happens, this will be a possibility for the future lasting peace agreement.
One of the things we've heard from President Zelenskyy while we're talking about safeguards, he says our unity is our strongest safeguard for our future. There must be a sense of disbelief there in Ukraine that now, of all times, there's suddenly this extraordinary war of words between Kyiv and Washington. I mean, how's that affected people's morale? And has it left people feeling vulnerable and somewhat abandoned?
Now, it definitely has been some sort of a shock to Ukrainians, but the fact is that, after 3 years of a full-scale aggression and 11 years of war with Russia, we've learned that you don't have to be, and you can't be in a despair for too long. So what people are saying, let's concentrate on supporting our troops and making sure that, we do what we can with the resources that we have. And Ukrainians are not going to be, sitting there crying, waiting for some other people to decide their fate. We will do our best. We will try to find a solution. We will talk to other partners. We will persuade our allies, but we will also support our army and make sure that it's strong enough, because there's no other way for us. So although it has been not taken lightly, we are continuing as a society as a whole to oppose Russia. And honestly, again, I will repeat that those statements against President Zelenskyy, whether you like him or not personally, have united people around him and gave him an extra mandate to act on behalf of all of the Ukrainians.
There's a lot of speculation on TV channels all around the world as to what the methodology is here behind President Trump's approach towards this issue and other issues. But in this particular case, what do people in Ukraine think? Do they think that somehow there is a plan here, and that, you know, keeping this issue in the headlines, having everyone talk about it is somehow, as you're saying, and you've mentioned it just there, that everyone's now rallying around the president of Ukraine. I mean, do people think that's part of President Trump's master plan?
Well, it's very hard to tell. I mean, there's nothing that, you know, that can be said for sure. It seems that President Trump is setting the table for negotiations in a way that he likes and had it done before. He definitely wants a quick solution. And of course, it's tempting to have a quick solution at Ukraine's expense. And if this is the sort of a trying to see how far Ukraine can be pushed, Ukrainians are pushing back. And Europeans are pushing back and saying that, well, we do want the peace agreement as well. We do want to stop, the fightings. We do want to stop the bombings of Ukrainian cities, but it's not going to come at our long-term future's expense. And I think in this way, this has been, setting the table by Mr. Trump in a very radical way. It's now our task of Ukraine and our partners in the EU to modify this approach. I think at some point we have already seen President Trump clarifying his words that any agreement on the peace will have to include Ukraine, something that he did not say before. And I think the hope here is that we will be able to communicate in clear terms to his representatives that the major agreement will have to be accepted by the Ukrainian society as a whole. It will have to be accepted and enforced by the EU countries, and the only way to do that is to include them at the negotiating table, and also to include their interests and concerns. So I hope that this exercise will serve to mobilize everyone, to crystallize their position, to make them clear, and in this way, it might even lead to quicker, solutions.
President Zelenskyy has obviously hit back at President Trump in a number of different ways over the past few days. One of the things he said is that President Trump lives in what he called a Russian disinformation space. Is that a view that is widely held in Ukraine, do you think?
I think so, because the first ones who started saying that President Zelenskyy has no legitimate mandate were the Russians. They've done this last year already. They've also have been speculating that Zelenskyy has lost the popular support. And these are the messages that Trump is repeating now. He somehow states that this is not just the Russian propaganda, it's position of his administration and many other countries, although we have not seen other countries repeating this. On the contrary, we've seen other countries setting the record straight and saying, well, this is just not true. So in this way, of course, the feeling is that for some reason, the Trump is following the steps of the Russian propaganda.
And despite all of this, is there optimism in Ukraine that President Trump is going to strike a deal for Ukraine that is in Ukraine's interests? Or is there perhaps a sense that something new has to be done here and that Ukraine has to negotiate an end to this without any American involvement? I mean, is that even a realistic scenario?
I don't think that anyone in Ukraine believes in a realistic scenario of having a peace agreement without a clear U.S. Participation and endorsement. So this limits what Ukraine can do and expect. And President Zelenskyy has clearly stated that he does not believe that European brokered peace without the U.S. can be of a lasting nature. So in this way, Ukraine does need the U.S. support. At the same time, we believe that we can be and will be a reliable partner, not just a country that follows the orders. And in this respect, again, Zelenskyy compared and said that he believes that Ukraine should get the guarantees at par with Israel, who is also not a part of NATO, but has been enjoying the unwavering support, bipartisan support of the United States. So I think that's one of the options, even without the NATO membership, to have a solution for Ukraine. But again, I think that this will require a concerted effort between the EU and the US. And it seems that the new administration in the US administration has been going against Europe for some reasons on some of the issues. So this is something that is not exclusively concerning Ukraine. It seems that this new administration will try to set some new relations with the European continent as such, and Ukraine will have to be part of it. So I think we're evidencing some bigger shift in transatlantic relations. And it's our common responsibility to ensure that this transatlantic friendship and cooperation partnership will remain as strong as it was, or even stronger, because it serves everybody's interest on both sides of Atlantics.
Sergei, we're receiving word that General Kellogg and President Zelenskyy have now met. They've held their talks. They were going to hold a press conference, but it's been cancelled at the request of the Americans. Is there something to be read into that, do you think?
Well, it's hard to say. Only the parties know what actually happened behind the closed doors. Definitely, they don't have an agreement. They have not shaken their hands, as they have nothing to announce so far. And we do know that President Zelenskyy can be very honest and very, straightforward about his views. And maybe at this point of time, we need another round of exchange of opinions before any public announcements are made. So we're, of course, following very closely what's going on and waiting for, I think, a personal meeting between the President of Ukraine and President of the United States. This is where the real decisions will be made. This is the meeting that everybody expects, and that's where the press will be waiting for a real press conference. So at this point of time, I wouldn't be too worried. I think that we are still at the stage where the parties have different positions, and they're only just trying to narrow it down to something they can agree upon.
And just lastly, I mean, in terms of the message that General Kellogg takes back to Washington, we heard this from President Zelenskyy last night. He said, America needs success just as much as we do. Do you think General Kellogg is going to be able to persuade President Trump that is indeed in Washington's best interests to make sure this deal is a success?
I think only a strong Ukraine will be a bulwark defending Europe from any further Russian aggression. And in this way, I think this message should, persuade President Trump, because Ukraine has proven that with this army and the technologies that has been applied, it is able to withstand the Russian aggression with the forces that are 3 times as big as Ukrainian ones. And, the hands of the safe Europe lie somewhere, at the eastern border of Ukraine. So if he does want to have a stable European continent, it is only possible where Ukraine is strong and able to defend itself and, by definition, all of Europe for the foreseeable future and even after that. So I think this is the message that should ring the bells and should make sense in Washington.
OK, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Really appreciate you speaking to us. Sergei Petkov, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks.
Meanwhile, European leaders have been expressing concerns about being sidelined from Ukraine peace talks. This after the US and Russia held direct negotiations in the Saudi capital Riyadh without any European or Ukrainian presence. Well, now the British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is set to travel to the United States next week to meet with President Trump to discuss Europe's role in helping to end the war. Well, in response to President Trump's comments, the British Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy has told the BBC that her country doesn't place too much weight on what the president says, emphasising that actions speak louder than words. The important thing with President Trump, she says, is what he does. Well, Nandy also called on all sides to turn down the heat in their discussions over Ukraine.
We want to take the heat out of the situation, and some of the words that have been used in recent days have been very heated, but we don't see that as helping to provide a solution for Ukraine. And the Prime Minister has been very clear that we need to take the heat down, that we need to work with all sides. And we've been very encouraged by both the public and private conversations that he's been able to have with world leaders over the last few weeks. And he's heading to the United States to have that conversation with President Trump and his administration. And we're encouraged by some of the words from the US Secretary of State for Defence, from the Secretary of State, and others, that they believe that that is in the United States' interests as well.
Well, for more analysis, we can speak now to Sir Gerald Howarth, the former UK Defence Minister, who joins us from the United Kingdom. Great to have you back with us here on Al Arabiya News, Sir Gerald. We're also joined by Jan Harper-Hayes, who is a former member of President Trump's White House transition team. Great to see you again as well. Let me start with you, Jan, because according to President Trump, the Ukrainian president is a, quote, dictator. He and NATO are to blame for the invasion of Ukraine. I mean, that sounds suspiciously familiar. That's the Kremlin narrative, isn't it?
Well, actually, the unprovoked was a good cover. And when you think about who poked the bear, it wasn't Russia and it wasn't the Ukraine. It actually was U.S. diplomats, politicians, and NATO. Because in 1990, it was guaranteed to Gorbachev that they would not move 1 inch eastward, to quote former Secretary of State James Baker. And the fact that they kept entertaining bringing Ukraine into NATO was really the crux of the issue.
So, Gerald, your thoughts on President Trump using what sounds like the Kremlin's lines to take, and also reacting there on what Jan's just said?
Yes, I think it is extraordinary that we have a United States president siding with a war criminal, a man who has no concept of democracy, who has eliminated most of his political opponents, and who has formed alliances with some of the most brutal regimes in the world, like North Korea, like Iran, like the Chinese Communist Party. It just beggars belief. And as former United States and former President Trump's national security advisor, John Bolton, said that this is a shameful behavior by the United States. And the idea that Russia was provoked by Ukraine or provoked by NATO, absolute, complete and utter rubbish. The provocation came from one source only, and that was from Russia. Putin invaded part of Georgia, a sovereign state, in 2008 and took South Ossetia and Abkhazia. In 2014, he invaded part of another sovereign state, Ukraine, Crimea, in 2014, and now in 2022 invaded the rest of Ukraine. And he has done it with complete impunity. And it is the failure of the West to stand up to this tyrant that has brought us to where we are today.
Jan, I must let you respond to that. And I also just want to ask you about the notion, therefore, according to the Ukrainian president, that President Donald Trump lives in what he called a Russian disinformation space. How do you respond to all of that?
Well, I understand the other guest's perspective, and I was waiting for someone to bring up Bolton, because if Bolton can say anything bad about Trump, he would. But, you know, Trump gave an interview, and he said that the reason he brought Bolton to North Korea, wouldn't let him speak, was just because him standing there threatened Kim Jong-un, because Bolton is known to support war. Trump is not a neocon. And we can criticize him all we want. But what bothers me is that we're not looking at the perspective from both sides. I don't know enough about the issues with Crimea, but it goes back to 2014. We need to look at that. And if anyone thinks that NATO pushing and going against an agreement, let's just look at this, all right? Russia promised Ukraine that if they got rid of their nuclear weapons, that they would not invade. Well, Russia broke that promise and went into Crimea. How can you trust on that side but NATO and Thatcher, Mitterrand, Kohl, George H.W. Bush, his Secretary of State, all made in the treaty, made commitments. And so these commitments continue to be broken over the years, and it builds up hostilities. If we're only looking at this from today or even the past 2 or 3 years, then we're not analyzing it properly.
Okay, so Gerald,
if I may say, that is an absurd analysis. Forgive me, but what we should be looking at is the Budapest Memorandum of December 1994, which was signed by Boris Yeltsin on behalf of the Russian Federation, by President Bill Clinton on behalf of the United States, by Prime Minister John Major on behalf of the United Kingdom, and the then Ukrainian president, under which Ukraine agreed to give up its entire arsenal of nuclear weapons, in return for which its independence, its sovereignty, and its existing borders was to be respected by the parties thereto. I'm afraid that Russia is in flagrant breach of that agreement that was signed by Boris Yeltsin, but I'm afraid the President of the United States is also now in breach of that agreement by tantamount to agreeing to allow the borders of Ukraine to be changed from what they were in 1994, and even to be changed without consulting the Ukrainian people, let alone their president. I think this is utterly shameful, leaving the United Kingdom as the only man standing prepared to honour that agreement of 1994. It wasn't an Article 5 guarantee to Ukraine, I accept that, but to undertake, as they all did, solemnly to respect the borders and the sovereignty of Ukraine, and to agree and to undertake to refrain from any military action. It has been completely breached by Putin, and I cannot understand how the President of the United States can be so unbelievably naive as to accept any assurances he's been given by Putin, let alone the wily Lavrov, the foreign minister who's been there since 2004. This is a disgusting regime. Its opponents have a habit of falling out of windows in Moscow. And look at the number of young, sensible Russians who have fled the country to avoid being caught up in this appalling war which is taking place on their borders. I'm afraid to say I have no time. Having said that, there were some things that President Trump did when he first came in, of which I approved, not least his dismissal of federal employees engaged in diversity, equality, and inclusion. But this is an international issue. He's in breach of an agreement which his predecessor, Bill Clinton, signed, and I think that it is monstrous.
Okay, let's move on to some of the rhetoric that's being used. According to President Trump, President Zelenskyy is a dictator. Jan, where do you think he's coming from here?
One of the things to know in understanding Trump's messaging is that he uses it to either float an idea, to deflect, or to distract from something else. He knew that the media would seize upon this and everyone would need to be talking about it. And it was a ploy. It's one of his many, many ploys. I, for 10 years, have tried to explain to the media how to connect the dots and how to understand his optics and when he chooses to say something.
Okay, is it helpful to call him a dictator when, we're in these very early stages of negotiation between the Russians and the Americans, for President Trump to label... Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Knowing Trump as I do, calling him a dictator was in response to Zelenskyy saying that he lives in a world of disinformation. Okay.
I mean... well, he did live in a world of disinformation because he went along with the idea that President Zelenskyy enjoys 4% support in Ukraine. Absolute rubbish. He enjoys 57% support in Ukraine. So why on earth did the President of the United States tell what was manifestly a complete lie? I mean, he is fracturing NATO, siding with NATO's long-standing enemies, a country which has got a history of aggression, and which, if it is not stopped in Ukraine, will certainly go elsewhere, not least probably to Moldova, and perhaps to take the Suwalki Gap between Kaliningrad, which is a Russian enclave on the Baltic coast, and
well, Trump is very
Belarus.
angry.
And can I just say, Jan,
let Sir Gerald finish.
Jan, your president has no right. Your president has no right unilaterally to try to force the capitulation of a sovereign state, Ukraine, particularly when his country is party to that agreement to respect the sovereignty, independence, and existing borders of Ukraine as they applied in 1994. And I'm afraid, Jan, I think you should be ashamed as well.
Jan, let me respond. I'll let you respond.
You know, I always find it interesting when people need to value judge because we have a disagreement or we see things differently. There are a lot of international laws that have been violated. I forget the point I was going to make in response to something that he said, but I clearly hear your position, sir, and I understand where you're coming from. But what is missing in what you're saying is that it is so one-sided and you hate Russia. So what Trump is trying to do is trying to bring those sides and those issues and those feelings to the surface because he's a great negotiator and he listens. If the peace agreement and what happens going forward, we cannot make judgments on news of the day. He has got Marco Rubio, John Radcliffe, CIA, and Mike Waltz, NSC. They're in Ukraine working on negotiating with them. And right now, the proposals have not been flushed out enough. But I think that also Zelenskyy made a mistake by having a temper tantrum about not being in Saudi Arabia, because you know that when there are negotiations, it is best to have one-on-one to understand a person's position, or else you end up having a semi-debate like we're having here with this guy telling me I'm absurd and I should be embarrassed. There are things that I could say back to you, but if you don't look at what
Forgive me, Jan. Forgive me, Jan. Forgive me, Jan. I'm not this guy. I'm a former British Defence Minister. I'm a former Member of Parliament of the United Kingdom. I'm a former Parliamentary Private Secretary to Margaret Thatcher. I have a long history of being involved in politics. Do not say I hate Russia. I do not hate Russia. I actually worked for the Sukhoi Design Bureau. You probably never heard of them. The Sukhoi Design Bureau are the design bureau which designed some of Russia's most formidable combat aircraft. I did that 30 years ago because I felt that it was important to try to bring Russia on side. What has happened is his country has been usurped by Putin and his henchmen, who are a bunch of evil people. And I come back, what right does the President of the United States have to seek to negotiate with this tyrannical regime, guilty of war crimes, over the head of the country whose borders are being decided? It is just completely outrageous. And when you say that Trump is a great negotiator, so what he's been saying is that because America has given some support to Ukraine, militarily speaking, that entitles the United States to hoover up all the rare earth minerals that exist in Ukraine, and that if he doesn't comply with that, well, America will desert him. I have to say, I have never in my whole political experience come across such an extraordinary display of international diplomacy, which completely, of course, abuses the word diplomacy. But this is extremely dangerous for the future of the whole of the West. He's fracturing NATO. He's just giving every possible encouragement to Putin. So when Putin and his henchmen then go somewhere else what is the President of the United States going to do then?
Well, I find it very interesting that your voice tone changed completely when you said some nice things about Russia, but in your previous comments, your detest for them was coming through so clearly. And
it was not detest for the Russian people, it's detest for this regime. This is a most heinous regime. I mean, there's just a report in the Daily Telegraph today that female Ukrainian prisoners of war have been tortured and paraded naked through the snow by Russian troops. For goodness sake, what on earth are we doing in the West, cozying up to the people responsible for these atrocities? It just beggars belief, and I just hope the American people who voted, particularly those who voted to Trump for Trump, and I tried to explain to people here why I thought the American people were going to vote for Donald Trump. And I was no supporter of Kamala Harris, I have to say.
OK, when it comes to decoding and deciphering President Donald Trump, some quite interesting analysis put forward appropriately by the former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and I'd like to get both of your thoughts on this. He's playing down a lot of the Trump rhetoric of the last couple of days, saying, quote, this is not intended to be historically accurate, but to shock Europeans into action. A sort of tough love approach, says Boris Johnson. Jan, your thoughts, and then I'd love to get yours as well, Sir Gerald.
Well, that relates back to the comment that I made of how he uses his comments. He floats to see responses. He will distract if he's doing something that he doesn't want the media to pay attention to. He'll deflect, meaning switch course, or he will float something and then give his response to it. But Boris Johnson is exactly right. Trump knows how to play the media, and he is a different person behind the scenes. But he is doing this because he wants to hear the opinion of very senior, experienced politicians, as the other guest is, and because what it does is when you've got Rubio, Ratcliffe, and Walz at the table with the European leaders, they are going to know what the issues are, and they can come prepared. We can't make any conclusions on things that are being reported right now.
Sir Gerald, what are your thoughts on what Boris Johnson said with regards to how we should interpret the US president?
Well, I've always said that one of the things that Putin would find difficult was that he's a chess player, and he sees moves being done carefully and studiedly, whereas we never know what President Trump is going to say next, and I suspect nor does he. And that is one of the disconcerting things that Moscow has had to deal with until now, of course. But as far as the rhetoric in respect of the Europeans is concerned, yes, it has had an effect. The NATO summit in 2014, David Cameron, then our Prime Minister, made it absolutely clear that other European NATO countries had to step up to the plate as far as the NATO budget was concerned. And there's no doubt that President Trump's first presidency had some effect. I said to the Prime Minister, Theresa May, before she went to see Donald Trump at the start of his first presidency, and she had to make it crystal clear to him how NATO was important, not just to us, but to the United States as well, because in the run-up to the election, he threatened to take America out of NATO. And she smiled at me and said, I've already done it, Gerald. And there's no doubt he reviewed his position and supported NATO. And he's quite right, and we are all right, that the NATO countries, the European NATO countries, have to do far more than they have been. They cannot rely, they should not rely on the US taxpayer for the bulk of NATO's expenditure. And furthermore, they should not be engaged in trying to create an alternative to NATO, which is this EU defense identity, which I think is a fundamental error I saw at firsthand how they tried to organize themselves, and I just thought it was very pathetic. Whereas NATO has been the guarantor of our security in Europe and North America for the past 80 years. And I find that the president's attitude is cavalier towards the continuation of that security agreement, which has kept the peace in Europe and wider.
OK, and in terms of getting shocking Europe into action, the British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, the French President Emmanuel Macron, travelling to the United States next week. They're going to be speaking to President Trump to discuss a role for Europe in ending the war. Jan, how do you rate their chances in getting across to President Donald Trump a different set of messages and a rather different narrative to the one he appears to have?
On a 1 to 10 scale, I'd give it a 2 to 4.
Okay.
He doesn't have much respect for Keir Starmer. So, and Keir Starmer was really only elected by 1/3 of the population or the voting population. And what percentage is unhappy with him right now? He is completely opposite to what all of his policies and his philosophies are opposite to Trump's. It's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of it. But I don't think Keir Starmer is going to make much headway.
OK, so Gerald, how do you rate the British Prime Minister's chances? And he is going accompanied by another European leader in the form of the French president.
Yes, that's unfortunate, I fear, because President Macron was the one who sought to cozy up to Putin right at the outset of the attempt to annex the whole of Ukraine when the tanks were parked outside Kyiv. So I think that's unfortunate. Also, Macron is the architect of this European defence, EU defence identity. I'm all for the European members of NATO getting together, but not under the banner of the European Union. But having said that, I have agreed with much of what Keir Starmer, I'm obviously an opponent of all his policies domestically, and I would take Britain out of the European Court of Human Rights and all of that. Having said that, though, I think he has behaved correctly as far as Ukraine is concerned. And I just hope that that President Trump does listen to him. And if Jan is right, and I'm not sorry for my forgive me for my stance. I've been in politics a long time. I came into politics because I was brought up in Germany. I saw the Iron Curtain. I saw the whole suppression of freedom. On the other side, I saw the misery of communism, and I wanted to do my bit to try to ensure that capitalism, free markets, free society, freedom of speech, all of that was preserved. And thanks to President Ronald Reagan, thanks to Margaret Thatcher, and thanks to the Russian president at the time, fortunately, the Cold War was ended and a new future beckoned, but unfortunately, that has not happened as those two great leaders, Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, had hoped. So this relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom is extremely important. We are both we both have the nuclear deterrent. We both share the same nuclear missiles, and we share a lot in military intelligence. And I do not want to see President Trump fracture all of that.
OK, and just lastly, Jan, we've had the...
I have a hard stop. I'm sorry.
OK. All right, Jan.
Go ahead.
We'll let you go. If you've got to go, we'll let you go, and we'll end it there. Appreciate it. We really appreciate having had both of you.
Can I just say, Sir Gerald, I have enjoyed listening to you. And
oh, well, thank you very much. I'm sorry.
I really have.
I feel passionately about it, Jan. And if I've got through to you my passion, I mean, I'm a Republican. You know, I mean, in terms of the U.S. politics, of course, I'm a monarchist here, but I'm a Republican, and it grieves me intensely to see my Republican friends not standing up for freedom. Yes, there's corruption in Ukraine. I was chairman of the All-Party Ukraine Group. There's corruption in Ukraine. I understand that. And we have to, I told President Poroshenko, so when this is all over, if you do not eliminate corruption in your country, your friends who stood by you in this difficult time are going to be absolutely disgusted. And he understood that. But we've got to stand by freedom. This is all that our former leaders, our great leaders, have been seeking to do.
Sir Gerald, I hope to make your acquaintance. And Michael,
all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jan Harper-Hayes. Really appreciate your time. And we hope to facilitate that introduction to the pair of you. Sir Gerald Howarth as well, former UK Defence Secretary. It's been a real pleasure having you back here on Al Arabiya News.
Thank you, Tom.
And finally, President Trump is promising to carry out an audit and count the gold reserves being held at Fort Knox, the famed depository for much of the US government's gold reserve. Well, according to the US Treasury, more than 8,100 tons of gold bullion are held at the facility, which is closely guarded by the US military. Well, Fort Knox is the most famous repository for gold. However, vast quantities are also held in vaults in West Point, Denver, as well as the Federal Reserve in New York. Well, the last official visit to Fort Knox was reportedly in 2017. Well, this has fueled ongoing discussions about transparency. President Trump's recent comment on auditing the gold storage follows on from questions raised by Elon Musk as to whether or not the reserves are safe. Well, President Trump says, quote, he'll be upset if the gold isn't there.
We're going to go into Fort Knox to make sure the gold is there.
Are they going to?
You know that we're going to go into Fort Knox. The things we do want to look. I mean, we hope everything's fine with Fort Knox, but we're going to go to Fort Knox, the fabled Fort Knox, to make sure the gold is there.
Where would the gold have gone? Brought up.
If the gold isn't there, we're going to be very upset.
That is all we have time for on Global News today. Thanks for watching. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for a look back at some of the week's most exclusive interviews. Until then, bye-bye.
At Al Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Al Arabiya News.
It's very impressive.
Where knowledge meets perspective.
Minister, thank you so much for joining Al Arabiya. I want to kick off by just asking you to set the scene for us in terms of the prospects for Saudi investment in the UK.
Yes, of course. My role as Minister for Investment is obviously to do everything that I can to sort of support investment in terms of the UK, but also UK into other nations, whether that's the Kingdom or otherwise. And I think at the moment it's a really exciting time to be thinking about the opportunity that the UK holds. For a start, we've got some of the best sort of academic institutions in the world, some really interesting problems that are being solved around there. Secondly, we're thinking about how we think about the sort of regulatory framework and making sure we have a good, open-minded, pragmatic and stable regulatory framework to support investors in helping driving our initiatives. But most importantly, we've really laid out what it is that the government's trying to accomplish within the UK, within our modern industrial strategy. And in there, we've laid out the sort of key areas that we are looking to sort of develop and drive into the future. What key one for me is thinking about sort of the green energy transition and how we use investment to sort of support our ambitions to be a green energy superpower by 2035.
What about artificial intelligence? Because obviously Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf countries are going to be spending billions on infrastructure. That's not something that the UK can do given your energy dynamic.
I am so interested in the artificial intelligence side. My background is from the technology sector, so obviously it's an issue that's close to my heart. And I think success around artificial intelligence is twofold. So the first thing is really thinking about the infrastructure, and that's accessibility to data centers, making sure we're provisioning the energy that's needed to keep all of that data safe and secure, the connectivity, making sure that the latency is appropriate, making sure we've got the skills and expertise to create all of that fantastic AI. But the other aspect is, how do we encourage adoption of these technologies? And how do we create a culture of innovation where using technology in day-to-day aspects is part of what it is to engage with government? And one of the things that I found really interesting in this particular trip is the appetite within the kingdom for people to use the technology on a day-to-day basis. And that's something that I've really paid attention to and thought, how do we encourage that kind of culture? And I think that's something that the government can really think about in terms of making the sort of technology-enabled services as well. So that's been a really interesting aspect in terms of AI.
Covering the kingdom, you see very often that they're ahead of the curve when it comes to adopting new technologies. And then, to your mind, how easily is that going to be done in the UK, given the fact that you have the highest energy costs, and at the same time you have an infrastructure that doesn't necessarily enable that, plus regulation? Because the folks that I speak to on a regular basis say the UK is the last place that they want to open a business, and it's simply due to policies.
I categorically disagree, and I would say the counter. I think when you think about the regulation...
How can you disagree? All the millionaires left last year.
But let me touch...
And they're entrepreneurs, they don't want to do business in the UK.
This is my day-to-day life. I spend my day with these AI entrepreneurs and I see them, and I think about the regulatory framework. We have got, if you think about data privacy, so GDPR, I've got the strongest regulations that make sure we keep our consumers and data safe. But regulation around AI is incredibly pragmatic, which means innovators are able to come in, they're able to use the latest technology, but know that...
But I mean regulations on entrepreneurs specifically, and I'm talking about taxation.
Taxation.
Chasing them out of the country.
We have got the best research and development tax incentives anywhere in the world. The UK R&D tax incentive is world class. And I think that is one of the reasons that we've seen so much of that capability coming out of the UK. We have the best academic institutions in the world. We have got some world-class R&D tax incentives. With regards to entrepreneurs, we've got EIS schemes to make sure those early innovators are rewarded for the risk that they take. The next challenge I think that we're spending a lot of time thinking about is, how do we make sure that they get access not just to the seed capital, which we know they do. There's many, many billion-pound companies coming out of the UK. But how do we provide them the scale-up capital to take that to the next level and beyond? And that's the part that I'm really excited about.
So essentially, we saw the Baker building having your growth forecast for 2025. You're not doing well. What is the plan? Are you going to get Rachel Reeves fired? I mean, what is the next step for this government? Because we've heard a lot of announcements, but they haven't yet delivered.
All departments within the UK government are singularly focused on growth and how we accomplish those growth ambitions. No one is satisfied with the level of economic growth that we've seen over the last decade. And we acknowledge and know that the next decade will require us to make sure we're delivering on that growth. We have set ambitious targets. We've got the industrial strategy where we've been really thoughtful about what are those key sectors that are going to be driving growth. And then we thought about what is the role between that public and private partnership to be able to bring together investment to achieve that. So on the public side, we've got the National Wealth Fund, so thinking about how do we use public money to sort of seed and catalyse those sort of emerging markets, but then how do we work with the private sector to create investment opportunities so that we can coalesce and bring that investment around those key objectives that we've laid out in the industrial strategy.
You're here at a very historic time, the talks between the United States and Russia. There's a lot of concern in Europe that those folks aren't at the table. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has said that we're going to have to spend a heck of a lot more on defense. Where is that money going to come from?
I think this is why this sort of key aspiration around growth is such an important situation. We had the budget that came out last year, and that raised a lot of money for the government to be able to invest in those key sectors, whether that's the healthcare or in terms of increasing defence spend or indeed education. But more is yet to be done, which is why sort of really helping to support the government on its growth agenda is my role as a Minister for Investment, and one I feel very passionate about.
So you coming from the private sector, you understand the need to show results. When are we going to see results from this government?
I also know that coming from the private sector, these things are very, very difficult to predict. But I think it's about how do we translate this overwhelming desire and will to see growth, and how do we translate that into execution. We're already starting to see that in terms of thinking about the regulation, making sure they're aligned with growth. But then it's also the pragmatic day-to-day frustrations that get in the way that the government is really trying to clear out. In my role as the Minister for Investment, people are talking about things like access to the grid. They're worried about sort of planning regulations and getting planning approvals through. And that's why the government has made sure that we are introducing more planners, clearing the way to allow that investment to come in rather than having to go through long, timely delays that not only cost you in terms of timescales, but also in terms of money, because that money is sat dormant, unable to sort of execute and unable to support the growth. So I think we're really helping to make sure that we clear away those barriers.
And finally, when you think about how you're going to invite investors into the UK, how do you deal with the pushback on the non-dom regulation? Because they say, why would I go?
I think it's not what I see. So every day within
That's what I hear from many people I speak to, investors, people who used to live in the UK and who got out immediately when this legislation came in.
And I think understanding their reasons and the tax implications is something that the Chancellor is listening to, but ultimately innovation will be fostered by having the best academic institutions in the world, people out there solving those real problems, and then sourcing that investment behind that. I would love to see many, many, many more people that have generated that wealth coming into the UK and supporting that.
Minister, thank you for joining us.
It's been a real pleasure.
From the White House to Gaza, Kyiv to Beijing, elections, economics and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deepfake and artificial intelligence,
they've got to have a vote and a say.
It's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
My campaign is going very well.
Presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers.
As Arabs, as Middle Eastern, we're too emotional.
Join me on the Riz Khan Show for empowering conversation.
Cape Town. See what nature and culture have to offer in Cape Town. Cape Town is the second largest city in South Africa and the southernmost city of the African continent. It is home to the famous Cape of Good Hope, where you'll get a thrilling glimpse of where the Atlantic meets the Indian Ocean. The city is also known for the Castle of Good Hope, with its extensive William Fair collection of art and military memorabilia. Another iconic destination is the Robben Island, which offers visitors a first-hand experience of the imprisoned history of leaders like Nelson Mandela and Walter Sisulu. The prison not only holds important historic significance, it also allows for a beautiful half-day ferry ride across the sparkling waters of South Africa. Over 20 million tourists also visit the Victoria and Alfred waterfront each year. It is known as the city's working harbor, where you can have plenty to do in terms of dining, shopping, and sightseeing. One of the 7 magnificent botanical gardens of the world, you should also have a look at the luscious and rare flora of Cape Town at the Kirtenbosch Botanical Gardens. You'll definitely come across impressive rows of rare African plants. It's a great place for botanical education. There are also a lot of marine life to see in the city. Cape Town offers a rare and up-close glimpse of these underwater animals while in their natural habitat. Table Mountain is the greatest and most popular landmark of Cape Town. It's one of the famous places in the city that features an incredibly unique and varied ecosystem. It's also suitable for leisurely walks or morning jogs, and great for hiking up to the summit. You can enjoy a hearty meal while at it, or simply take in the magnificent view. There are also many vineyards worth visiting in Cape Town. Along the endless stretch of hills and valleys are the vineyards that make the best wines in the world. Heavy with local culture are the colorful streets of Bokop. It is popular among the visitors of Cape Town, offering a lively glimpse into the culture of the Muslim descendants who created these enchanting streets.
At Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News,
It's very impressive.
where knowledge meets perspective.
From the White House to Gaza, Kyiv to Beijing, elections, economics and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deepfake and artificial intelligence,
They've got to have a vote and a say.
it's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
My campaign is going very well.
presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers.
As Arabs, as Middle Eastern, we're too emotional.